It's the Chick Show. It's the Chick Show.
It's the Chick Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Chick Show. Today, have I got a treat for you? My guest today is an IU Hall of Famer. She was the state runner-up in the IHSAA Girls Golf Championships in 1990 and 1991. She was the Trester Mental Attitude Award winner. She placed fourth in the 1995 NCAA Women's Golf Championships, three-time Big Ten champ, a Marilyn Smith Award winner. She turned pro in 1997, and she is currently coaching golf at golf instructor. I don't know what it's really called. I'm not a golfer, down in the Indianapolis area. Ladies and gentlemen.
I did it. I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to rig my computer so I can.
It looks like you're constantly just saying yes.
Am I there?
There you are.
I can't. Look, can I see myself?
You should be able.
There I am.
You see it?
I got it.
Oh
okay,
my
now
God.
I got it. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. Like, we could just do class reunions like this from now on.
It might be better.
It could be.
I could tell everybody, hey, I'm gonna go do a dance over here in my living room, and then not.
Man, that would be excellent. Sorry, I'm wearing headphones. I can't hear any other way.
No, that's okay.
So I really do have ears, just so you know.
I know you do. We went to school together. I didn't hear about how you lost them in some tragic accident.
I had a weird accident after high school, lost both my ears, but I'm still here now. So what's been going on?
Oh, just not much this year. Just 11 months ago, I fell. My boyfriend has 20 acres down near Madison where you were living.
Yep.
And it's just, I mean, it's out there. It's kind of, and I was looking for him and our dog, and I fell down a hill and fractured my tibia and my fibia and my talus.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So that was October. I did the surgery and I was like, hey, doc, you did a great job, but my ankle hurts. And they didn't find out about the talus until February, when they'd released me to start walking, that the talus was fractured. They couldn't see it on the x-rays, I guess. So I had to wear a boot for 6 weeks, no weight bearing. And so when I got that boot off, it was basically April 1st. And I was like, I'll be walking in 2 weeks. And my 49-year-old body said nuh-uh. And I was teaching. I did a junior camp with crutches.
Oh my god.
And it was kind of nice because it was kind of like like the extended thing for the buses.
Yep.
Like I had one kid was just walking too far, and I'm like putting out that crutch, just like stopping him. So this isn't how I wanted to spend my 49th year. But I guess on the podcast, I can offer people, I have a walker. I've got some crutches. I got a couple different kinds of canes, a couple types of boots. So if anybody's interested, I even have the knee walker thing. So if anybody needs some, I have my own little rehab clinic here at the house. I did loan out the knee walker already.
The scooter?
The little scooter. I couldn't use it, but I did loan that out already. So at least somebody else is getting some. This has just been whatever. I like, people are like, you're limping, and I'm like, I know, thank goodness. Like I try to, and I'm trying to turn it into like, I'm just happy and blessed that I'm walking, and I've been able to teach. I do think it maybe scared a few clients away, some potential clients away, just because I'm like, hi, I'm Erika. I'll teach you how to play golf, and I'll learn to walk later.
Yeah.
So, but it's. I'm trying to find the most positive silver lining out of all of it, I guess. So, but that's basically what I've been doing.
It's what happens to us Northern Indiana people. And I get a story about that real quick too, but us Northern Indiana people, we didn't know how to walk on hills. And I had that problem when I went down to Madison. I struggled walking on the hills. And next thing you know, not only me, but Jennifer ended up with like plantar fasciitis. We weren't used to walking on hills, people.
It's, I did, I've played hilly golf courses. I've done all that. It was on a hill underneath a walnut tree. So I slipped on, I really don't want to ever see video of it, but it just I slid right down that hill. My whole left side just collapsed in
Oh,
my and just so. But it's
gosh.
I do love going down there, but now Joe calls it Walnut Hill, and I'm not.
Nice. Yeah, that's
I don't
fun.
want to go. I'm not going down there for quite a while. I'm still not walking. I'm not still not 100%, but at least I'm upright and not unaided, because I tell you, it was awful. I don't ever. I mean, visiting my mom in the rehab facility is like there's people on walkers and crutches and can't, and I'm like I've been there, I've done that, and all it does is it just kind of makes me want to just stay as strong as I can, go to the gym as much as I can, get as
Yeah.
strong and flexible, because I'm accident prone. I'm not, despite my career, I'm not an athletic person,
Well,
so
we're
I,
I
I'm
constantly
prone.
have to remind myself and others that I'm immortal, not invincible.
Yeah, well, I'm not liking my next birthday, so I keep going. Well, I am 50. I'm just trying to I'm trying to prep myself for January when that hits.
When is your birthday? Because I know ours is close.
25th.
I thought it was right around mine, and it is.
Hmm.
So you're going to be older than me. That's
Hmm.
nice. Jennifer will be older than me. You'll be older than me. Hers is the 17th. Yours is
Hmm.
the 25th, and I'll be the young one of the group still on the
Hmm.
27th.
For
So
2 days, you'll get to
you call
put
it
in for.
what you want. I call it younger.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes, you're younger. You're younger.
So I know you're teaching golf.
Yes,
Good.
yes. I never really left. For those that are still listening and remember me from high school, golfer through college, did 6 years on tour, fell, fractured the other
Oh my
tibia 19
gosh.
years ago.
I thought it was a
So now I'm
knee.
so yeah, so with the tibia, it was the tibia. So I needed
Okay.
4 surgeries for that one. Um, so that kind of ended that career of playing, and then I kind of got myself into the teaching end of it. I was living out in California, met a nice guy out there, not the right guy. And then I started teaching at a country club. And then I wanted to get back home. I wanted to get back to Indiana, found a job in the Indianapolis area, and then it was with Golf Tech. And then I moved with another golf, just complete instruction. And I like that way better than running tournaments and working the long hours in the pro shop. Now, when it's, really hot, or like the other day when I was dodging raindrops, I can't believe I didn't get rained out. It's nice when you're inside, but I just did love the teaching end of it probably more so than the playing, because I see people, lots of people get to tell me that they're improving, or if they,
Yeah. Man,
seeing a difference.
there's so much reward in teaching and seeing how, someone that aha moment. I can
Hmm.
imagine it's probably even bigger when it's adults. When it's kids sometimes don't see it. So
Hmm.
for 9 years I was either in the classroom or in the hallway, in the admin office. But when you see that aha moment with a kid, most times it's an adult that sees it. Sometimes it's kids, and when the kids see it, it's like, oh my god, I mean, now we both get
Hmm.
into and get excited. But when it's an adult, they know it, I would assume anyway.
Oh yeah, I've had people just they start giggling. I've had some, mostly guys. If they have the aha moment, they'll cuss. They'll be like, "What?" They an expletive, and the kids. Sometimes the kids are. I'll say, "Do this," and they'll go like this, and then they just perfectly execute it, and I'm like, "Yeah, like that." And the parents are like, "Wow, that's great!" And so I'm like, sometimes the kids are easier because they don't have like
Mhm.
that whole ignorance is bliss. Like when you get older, you're like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Or you think too much of it, and then it prevents you from improving. But when when they have the aha moment, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny.
So how's the family? I don't want to get too crazy here before, I mean, we're just getting started.
Yeah, they're good. Everybody's I mean, I think so. I don't have any children, none that I know about, and Angie doesn't have any kids. She's married, but everybody else is married with children. Laura's daughter is third. Well, she was born in
Yeah.
91, so
Yeah.
she's 32. She has 3 kids, so it's just kind of, I know, it's crazy. Megan, my baby sister, who's 14 years younger, she just had her third. So everybody's just expanding, but I think everybody's happy and kind of doing their own thing. We tried to get together a few years ago, but then of course COVID hit, so we couldn't get together. But it's been they're all kind of just living their lives and all married and raising kids and getting, some of them are even, Matt and Andrea have kids going into college. And
Man.
so it's I know, it just doesn't seem possible, but then I remember, oh wait, I'm almost 50, so it's possible.
Almost.
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 Well,
Might as well just, I'm just saying it.
I had a
So
joke. I was gonna say there's like 13 of you or something,
there's 6 of us.
and that's your
Yeah.
joke, by the way. I remember you talking about, rabbits and Catholic
Oh
family.
yeah. 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 I mean, who knew when my folks got married that they wanted a big family and they got it.
They got
So
it.
there's 6 of us and everybody's doing well. And I mean, I think because of the age difference, Megan is only a few years older than Brooke.
Hmm.
So Brooke kind of gets included into the family, sibling dynamic as well. When we go
Sure.
to, outings and stuff, Brooke is there with her 3 kids and they're beautiful. So I think everybody's happy and healthy and we're all just kind of doing our thing. And mom's still around. She's in rehab. She fell, so she's kind of learning how to get back up again.
Hmm.
Hopefully a few more weeks. I was just there today. We had to delay this. Thank you for the traffic, and it's awful. There's construction and people are getting in accidents everywhere. But dad passed away 17 years ago. So
Yeah.
um, down when they were down in southern Indiana, but I think he's looking down on all of us and he's happy. I know he's happy that I'm still golfing. I still hear him when he taught me and he taught Laura and I like the value of finding golf balls. And I will take some of my kids out and they love looking for golf balls too. So I'm like, let's find you more
Oh
golf
my
balls.
gosh, Erica, just last night. So, I live in Creekside, and I'm on
Hmm.
hole 11, which didn't exist when we were younger.
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
when we were when we were in our early teens and whatever. I mean, you spent your life out here, but when we were younger, I would come out here with the guys from the neighborhood, like Jamie Wittig and Jason Butler and those guys, and we'd chase golf balls all over the place through the
Hmm.
creek bed, and then we go seining for minis and stuff in the creek. And just yesterday, so across the street from me is where Larry Arnold lived, and Trista and Don Arnold now
Hmm.
have that house. Trista Kuykendall, they now have that house in their possession, and I mow it for them. It's a quick mow,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? It's right across the street from me. So I'm over there mowing, and I catch myself. I get off the mower and I go back into their little woods area. They're on 11 or 7. They're on, God, what is he on? I don't know
I
which
don't know.
one it is. Maybe
I've only played like
15,
that background a couple times. Yeah.
15, 16, something like that.
Hmm.
And so I'm back here in the woods hunting golf balls while I'm mowing. Because I'm like, oh my God, this
Hmm.
has got to be easy pickings. I just have a big
Oh.
fairway. It's all open behind me.
Hmm.
So everybody can typically find their ball. This year they
Yeah.
had some no-mow going on, but I still didn't find many golf balls out there in the area they no-mowed. So I have to go across the fairway into
Hmm.
the other woods out on the golf course property.
Hmm.
And it's just, I enjoy it. It's like Easter egg hunts.
I do. I think it's fun, and then you're like, "Ooh, what did I get?" And
Right.
sometimes I'm like, "How much work am I going to do?" And I see it's a pinnacle or a top flight, and I'm like, "Nah, I'm not going to risk that." But I teach at 4 different courses like during the week. So I was at
Oh,
my coach's
wow.
course down in Martinsville, and I had my junior camp. Nobody showed up, and so it gave me like an extra hour. I know where all the golf balls are, so I know where everybody kind of hits
Hmm.
it. And I went and I ended up finding I think 20 golf balls and and that's what and so like I kept a couple of them, but then I gave the rest to Martin. They have like you lose them and we find them and then you buy them back. They
Hmm.
make like $300 a week selling those dollar golf balls down there. So I'm like, oh, I'm helping coach make a little money. So just for my
Now, you introduced me to, I think she was the Martinsville coach for years. Is that who you introduced me to a few years ago um,
coach
at the Indiana
Coach
girls?
Most.
Who was
Coach
it?
Most.
Yes.
Coach Most, yeah.
Sharon, maybe?
Yeah, Sharon Most, yeah.
I don't know how I remember names, but yeah,
Yeah.
I just remember that. She's like the queen of Indiana golf, if I remember right.
Yeah, she had a very successful team for very many years. And when we were, I mean, she was still coaching upwards of what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think she maybe
Wow.
stepped down. Um, but she was coaching when we were in school because um, I think so the year after we graduated, they won. I think my freshman or my junior year, and then or my senior year, and then the next year we Blackford placed second to them too. So
Wow.
so they won those few years, and I ended up playing with a girl on that team. I played with her at IU, but Coach Most, I think she stepped down about 6 years ago, and they've had, I think they're on their second coach since then. It's it's not an easy thing, but it was always kind of interesting to hear what she'd make the girls practice, and the girls, I'm like, girls, it's practicing, you gotta have to do it. But she's more old school, which is now almost frowned upon
Hmm.
for like on how you teach girls and or athletes and stuff like that. You can't I mean, if I told some of the stories Coach said to us, like, he'd be in trouble. But it's hilarious now. I mean, it makes you a better person.
I, I agree, and I don't think it's just girls. It's across the board. Coaching's
Mhm.
changed dramatically, and I coached high school softball for a couple years, and girls junior high basketball for a few years, and I don't know that I could coach either level the same way I did for those years uh, for various reasons. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, it's a different environment,
uh,
and they have higher expectations. And like, I go down to IU, and they have this amazing practice facility that they've made, and then the indoor, like, even you can hit indoors all year round. We used to have to pull range mats at the field house and hit into this big, there's a big huge net that they had on the one end of the field house, the south end, I think it was. And we would hit into this barrel. Well, all the track guys would spit their chewing tobacco in it. So, like, it was disgusting. But that's what we used to do. And now they have this great facility, and they're like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, are you
oh my
kidding me?
gosh.
Like, if I would have had this, I would have been even better. But the stuff that they get, and like, I look at our outfits that we used to wear, now what they're wearing, it's like the money that is spent is way better and probably better utilized than what we did. And but the expectation level is there too. We were just happy we were able to play, and hey, we got a new shirt.
That's right.
Let's match it with
Now I got to look
those
you up. I got to look
sneakers.
you up, see what you were wearing. We're going to
Oh
look at
god.
90s fashion. The good news is, Eric, this isn't videoed. I mean, we're just recording the audio.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's no
Oh,
video.
I can send you some pictures.
Oh my
Holy cow. There
gosh.
were there were the patches shorts. Those were it was like bandanas, like all sewn together. I mean, it was pleated Dockers. I mean, remember those things? I mean,
Oh
I wore
yeah.
pleated Docker shorts all the time, and to the point where I hate wearing khaki now. I'm like, oh, I could never work at Target because I was like, can I avoid the khaki? Like, I wore khaki so much, and the pleats were just. I look back at that fashion.
I'm
Woo!
seeing the plaid. There's a picture of you with someone else, another girl. You're wearing plaid shorts.
Oh, that was probably our better outfit.
It
Oh, we have. There are some that were just. I think it's kind of like. I think we kind of felt like the loudmouth golf attire now. Like, we're like, all right, we better bring it because we're wearing this
yeah,
outfit.
if you're
So
gonna wear that, you got to
then
kick some
we're
ass. I
gonna
mean,
we are, and we did. I mean,
you
IU, it
guys
was.
did
I
too.
had to. I mean, we did well, considering we started the team. I mean, Bob Morris started the team. Laura and I were. I was a sophomore. Laura was a freshman,
That's what I was
and
wondering. I didn't
and
think
we
there was.
no, and so he grabbed like Jill Lawson. Her folks were
Yeah,
members of the country club. Jenny Phillips was Laura's age.
yeah. I
She had
remember
played
Jenny.
some golf, and then it was Ram Black, and
Oh, I
she had
remember.
never played, but he was, because Coach Morris was the basketball coach, and he
Hmm.
knew how athletic she was. And we were like, okay, we got 5, don't get sick. And that's how it kind of started. And I mean, considering that we made it to state by my senior year, and had Laura not been, had she been able to play
Sure.
at finals, I think we would have won.
Wow.
So because instead of, taking the one score, we would have been able to take Laura's, 80 something probably, and we would have done 15, 20 shots better, and we would have definitely won state. So for, considering in just 3 years we had taken the program to that level, was really good. And then going to IU, we did fantastic. We won Big Tens twice. I won it 3 times. We made it to nationals 3 times,
Wow.
and we finished fifth or fourth. I can't remember. I finished fourth and the team finished fifth, or I finished fifth and the team finished fourth at NCAA. So we had a very successful program. Coach Carmichael was great, and then, after I graduated, that's all I was thinking about was getting on tour, and made it through Q school, and Coach caddied for me and helped me get there, and then played 6 years. Not
That's a pretty good career. That's nothing to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would be like, "Oh man, you made it," but I'm kind of like, "Well, I could have probably played better." And the hindsight, and then
Sure.
my own, Monday quarterback, or what is armchair
Something like
quarterback. I'm
that.
just kind of
Yeah.
like,
Well,
I'm
we're
like,
always our
I
worst
could have
best
done
critic.
this, and done this, and I just you know, the golf equipment was just not that great back then, and my swing wasn't that good. I mean, it was good, but there were some flaws that I now look back on, and I'm
Hmm.
like, well, that's the reason. But you know, I loved, I loved the winning in
Yeah.
high school and college, and then unfortunately I didn't win. I never won anything I won a mini tour event right after I'd graduated from IU. I won a mini tour tournament, but then didn't win. I finished fourth. That was my best finish on the LPGA level. And then
Out of how
I had
many? Out of how many golfers? Is that a
in that tournament, there were 144 that week. So there were 144 players every week, and but I mean, it's, when I was a little girl, we would go down to CCI down in Indianapolis, and we'd watch the Mayflower Classic, and I'm like, I'm going to be a golf pro, and that's all I cared about.
yeah.
And I had my first tournament. I was at Eaton. We're at the course in Eaton, and I finished. Is 1981, so I win the age division. I win seven, and because there was I was the only one. I
Okay.
win by default,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that, right? I just thought, and they handed me a trophy, and they're like, "Are you going to be a golf pro?" And I go, "Yes." And then I never looked back, and so it's just, I forget where I was going with it, but um,
You were
just
driven.
well, I that's just all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I get out there, then I get on the tour, and then I'm like, oh, I have to figure out how to get to my tournament. I have to plan. I've got to figure out once I get there, how to get there, how to rent. I was 22, I was 23 basically, and I flew to LA by myself. And because of the LPGA, I had a special exemption. I could rent a car through budget because I was under the age of 25. And so I flew to LA, went to my first tournament, rented a car, paid for the hotel. I'm staying, and actually I stayed with friends that week. But I mean, I'm booking hotels. My credit card, I had to up my limit to $10,000. And think about this is a long time ago.
Right.
So I mean, I'm spending 9 grand just, I knew exactly where I was going to be, for months in advance, and you had to plan it because you had to book your flights. And so I was, so you have a credit card bill of 9 grand coming up due. It kind of puts a little price. Like, I didn't think about all those things, right? And then you have the housing, and then you have the travel, and then
Hmm.
there's a lot of women that do it with children. I mean, Julie Inkster, phenomenal woman, phenomenal player, and I remember we were in Phoenix, and her daughter was sick. Her 9-year-old daughter was sick. She was in the emergency room until like 3 in the morning,
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
9 a.m. and she's teeing it up. So, and she still probably beat me. But I mean, just, I couldn't imagine. I could barely handle myself. I mean, I had a couple of friends that we could, I stayed in housing most of the time, which was wonderful because, coming from such a big family, you're not coming home to just a hotel room, and you're not eating on the bed, and, they would make you food, and they're super, super nice for the majority of them. And so I'd stay in every once in a while, you're like, all right, I need a little bit of space. You'd get a hotel room, and I had a couple of friends that we could share a room with because
Mm-hmm.
we're slobs, right? I keep my mess on on my side. She keeps hers on. Because I mean, it's like you have a duffel bag or you have a big suitcase. I mean, you have to have clothes for the whole week. Plus, I remember my rookie year, we were in St. Louis, and there was a cold snap, and it's July, and we're wearing pants and sweaters, and everybody's had to go out and buy stuff, and I had it all in the bottom of my duffel bag because I brought a couple sweaters. So
Mm-hmm.
people might be got tired of seeing me in those two sweaters all week, but I at least I had, I was, a Boy Scout and I was prepared. But they just you don't really look at all the stuff behind the scenes of all that goes into getting yourself to a tournament. And then you have to eat well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition wasn't as big. Um, as I think it is right now. Like I'm a couple years older than Tiger. And when he came on the scene, he really increased the fitness for golfers because most people didn't. We had a fitness van, but I never really used it, and I didn't know much about nutrition. But there's just so many things that go into having a successful playing career, and
Tell
you just
that to
don't.
John Daly.
Yeah, what a talent he is. I mean,
Incredible.
I was talking to Joe about him the other night. Like nobody, he doesn't get the credit that is due. His short game is phenomenal. It is absolutely that his touch around there. He's a one hell of a golfer, but he just couldn't get ahead of those ghosts. Right, those
Yeah.
demons they just kind of got him. So it's unfortunate, but a hell of a player.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd watch him play still.
Uh, I watched there's still times I'll get on YouTube and I'm looking at different swing stuff, and I've actually started playing. I'm terrible.
Oh, good.
I looked at one of your scores. I think you scored a 65 at one
Me?
time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
I don't.
shot 65 in the final round up in Michigan, and it could have been 61.
I I
Like
think that's what I shoot on 9. So not
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Not bad.
I was playing out of my shoes, and actually, it was I hadn't. It was like a 3-day tournament. It was just it was in Lansing, and it's the final round, and I'm pretty early, and but they're on the Central Time Zone, and I turn around, and there is John and Todd Geyer.
Oh
They had
wow.
driven up from Hartford City to come watch me play, and so they're out watching me, and I shoot 65. And
Wow.
they were like, "Wow, this is great, Erica." And I'm like, you have to come to every tournament now if I'm going to shoot 65 when you're here." But I mean, being on the LPGA, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, we're not getting the spectators.
Hmm.
So it was some days you're playing and you don't have one person watching you. So to have people that I mean, I was my dad's sub on the men's league at Laurel Lakes, and so John Geyer and my dad were partners. And so I would play with John Geyer. And
Wow.
and then Todd was, he'd always play with Laura and I and offer us, he'd play us for Cokes but it was so nice, but to have somebody at least
Yeah.
see it. But I did, I shot 65, I shot a couple 66s, but I never really went that's like when I look back, I'm like, oh, I should have been a little more, should have tried to make those birdie putts. So it's just, but it's, I practice so much because I am not athletic, but nobody was going to out practice me. That's
Hmm.
where I think that's how I did it to where now I take the club back and it sets perfect up at the top. It still sets up at the top.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, just to think about how the mental game for you, even as talented as you were, now you look back as a coach, you're like, ah, crap, man. You know?
Well, and I think it helps. Like sometimes when I watch my girls play, the parents will get mad, and and parents get upset, and I go, "Do you think that your daughter wanted to 3 putt that hole? Like she didn't,
Right.
And I'll try to diffuse the situation. I go, well, she did this or she did that, and we need to fix this or something. And I'm trying to, don't get mad at. It's not like they walked up and you know, they said, "Hey, I'm struggle bussing today. Let's take a quad." let's just, add fuel to the fire. Let's just, and sometimes it's because they're trying so hard
Yeah.
that they do worse. So I try to, I had one girl, she was playing at sectionals a week and a half ago, second hole, second shot, she bangs her club. And I go, what's that? And her dad's like, oh yeah, I'm glad you can see this. I go, why don't I know about this? He goes, well, I can't tell you when, she's right there in front of me. And I go, you text me. So I went to Goodwill and I bought her this club from like 1970. It was $3. And I gave it to her at the next lesson before regional. They still made it to regionals. And I go, if you bang your club again, I'm buying you this whole matching set. And so at regional, she did not bang her club once. She kept her composure. I go, one, you're telling your whole body that you're mad, and two, if I'm your competitor and you're banging your club, second
Mm-hmm.
hole, second shot, you're toast. I'm not even counting you as competition. So you kind of have to look at it from that kind of perspective. But the parents were very appreciative because she's got a $2,000 set of clubs in her bag. She's banging it. I'm like, I had the Ram Lady lasers, girl. I'll buy those are on eBay for $50. I'll buy you those.
I was going golfing with some friends, and it was John Chris, which I know John Chris listens to the
Mm-hmm.
podcast quite a bit, and Tony Skaggs, and my brother-in-law Jim Knuckles, and they hear my clubs rattling around, metal to metal, and they're like, "Oh," they're both cringing. And I'm like, "What? What?" I don't know. Number one, the clubs were given to me. Tom Oliver gave me his old set, and they're like, just the clubs banging against each other. That's, gives them the heebie-jeebies, and I'm like, okay, but I don't realize how much they have
Mm-hmm.
invested in each club.
Oh yeah.
I've been very blessed. Somebody's given me a set, and I don't. Number one, I don't bang my clubs on the ground because mentally I know better what it does to me, and that's my
Mm-hmm.
coach inside of
Yeah.
me that's going, don't do that. Don't do that to you, or let somebody
Mm-hmm.
else see it so they can rub you the whole next 18 holes. If
Yeah.
they're going to, oh, well, they're going to
Hmm.
know it.
Getting a little mad.
Yeah, they're gonna rib you the whole way. And
Uh-huh.
I hope that's not happening out on a sectional course, but it is mentally.
Oh, it's a. Sometimes I watch my girls and the dramatics, like they'll hit a shot and they're going, oh, their eyes are rolling back and they're just like. I had one girl I was watching her, and she started off, you know, par, bogey, par, and then she took like a double or a triple, and she's walking to the next hole, which is a par three, and she goes, now I have to get a hole in one.
Oh my gosh.
And I look at her and I was like,
Oh my
are you
gosh.
serious? Like, are you serious, Clark? Like, because you can just dial that up. You can just dial and that's their they think, well, I'm so far under, I need to make a big move. And my thought is just right the ship, get a par. How happy would
Right.
you be if you got a par? Right? What if you parred the rest of the way through the nine and you shot 41 instead of trying to go for birdie, and now you get another double. And these are all,
Mhm.
I'm trying to teach my kids things that took me so long to learn. I'm usually kind of a happy, smiley person, but when I was on the golf course, sometimes I was just stern and serious. And then I realized I play better when I have a smile on my face. So I was playing on the LPGA tour, and I got a Titleist 2 with a red dot and a smiley face on the side
I
because it
heard
would
it.
remind me to smile.
I'm glad you brought that up because I ran into someone, and I can't remember where I ran into him. I think it was up in South Bend, maybe. And someone was
Uh-oh.
wearing like a Michigan or Michigan State golf something. And they were around our age. So, I mean, it wasn't like I
Mhm,
was walking up to some, 20 something.
mhm.
They were in their 30s at the time. And I said, "Y- did you golf or do you golf?" And they're like, "Well, I played at Michigan State, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh, when?" And they're telling me it was in the early 90s, early mid 90s. I said, I had a friend of mine I went to high school with. She golfed a little bit at IU. And they said, "Well, who was it?" And I said, "Erika Wicoff." And this is their words, the wolf. Do you know anything
Oh,
about this?
well, I'm a little competitive. And I'll smile at you, but I want to kick your butt. And I remember I was losing the state amateur, and it was in Lafayette, and coach was watching, and this is when I was one of his players, and this girl who I was like, why, how can she be beating me, right? And so it's the final round, and inching up closer and I get a birdie or something, and I see coach walk off the course, and I'm like, what's he doing? And he left. And he told my dad, he goes on his way out, he goes, it's over. You don't let Erika even sniff the lead. And sure enough, I did, like birdie or whatever, and the girl faltered and I ended up winning. I snuck it by. Didn't play my best that week because I have another story with that one, but I loved winning. And I mean, my boyfriend's, he's getting better, but I give him 2 shots a hole, and I'm still keeping track. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get him on this one, and I'm still giving him 2 shots. I'm still beating him. Now last week I didn't do well because I still can't quite get into my left side yet, so I've lost a lot of distance, and I was just not hitting it very well. But he was doing. He beat me with the 2 shots, but even 1 shot he would have gotten me. So, I was really struggling the other day. But I'm quote unquote retired and kind of injured still.
So you
I'm
can't turn it off. You're just dialing it down.
Yeah, I know my limitations, right? I know when I can, and it's just been kind of interesting because I got to caddy for a couple of my friends from tour days, Leslie Spalding and Jill McGill, who actually won the U.S. Senior Open 2 years ago or last year, and I caddied for them at the French Lick tournament. We had carts. I could not carry my clubs. I could not carry clubs on the golf course. If you've ever seen pictures of it, it's stunning. But at first you have to be 45 to be a senior on the LPGA tour, and I was 43 or 44 when I first started doing it. And I was like, yeah, I'll play in this when I'm eligible. And then I started caddying for Jill, and it was cold and windy, and we drove to Paoli to buy stocking caps, and we're got hand warmers, and we're buying thermoses so we can make hot chocolate. And she's walking around down the fairway with a blanket on. And I was like, no, I'm not playing in this. But it's like I kind of go, I'm kind of like, I'm mixed emotions because 50 you can play in the Senior Open. So the USGA has 50 for seniors, and then the LPGA is the 45. So I could compete still. I know how much practice it's going to take for me to be like saying I'm ready to go. I might try to qualify for the U.S. Senior Open, and if I make it, because that's how I got in the last time. I was working full time at a golf course in Loomis, California, and it was taken over new management, and they're like, how are we gonna advertise? And I go, well, I might try to qualify for the Open. And they go, yes, you are. And I ended up beating, literally a bunch of 13 and 14-year-olds.
Oh.
And they took 11 players, and I finished 11th. And I remember calling coach that morning, and I was nervous, and because I hadn't competed in 4 years. And I called him, and he goes, it was 36 that day. It was 36 holes. And he goes, it's 36. He goes, oh, these girls might get you at 18, but they're not going to get you at 36. And I just kept that in my head, and I ended up beating him. And this old broad, that was in 07, right? So I'm like way younger. I'm 32, and people are thinking that, I'm ancient, but I beat a bunch of 13-year-olds and made it. But then once I got there, I played terrible. And coach was like, well, how much have you practiced? He was being like the positive one. Like, I'm like 3 months. He's like, Erika, these girls, he's like, look at, and Kari Webb, like, and great player. We were shooting the same score round 1. He's like, she's out here all the time, and you shot the same score. You're doing fine. He was trying to like talk me off the ledge, I think, a little bit. Cause I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing so bad. And I did well in the practice round. And so, you still have those expectations, and, because I'm still deep down, I think I miss the competition a little bit, but then when I really think about all the practice that it has to, I hit so many practice balls, and I've practiced so much that I kind of did enough for a lifetime. But maybe once because we have an indoor facility, so in the winter I might start, once I can really turn into that left side, I might start practicing a little bit, and maybe I'll try to qualify for the Open. We'll see.
I like it.
We'll see.
What's interesting? You were talking earlier about, coming out as a freshman. You played on the boys team, if I remember right.
Yeah.
In high school, and then you got the girls team going. And I was thinking, after I'd reached out to you to do this, and that's been a couple months ago, I started thinking about why in the crap did we not appreciate, and I'm just speaking candidly, how did we miss that? How did we miss how special of an opportunity we had as Blackford County people to come and see you guys? It just wasn't advertised, celebrated, promoted. And I
It,
knew, like, I knew you.
mhm.
And I'm looking back at it going, son of a gun, I didn't even go watch her play.
Mm-mm.
None of you.
It's and you know what? It's sad, but some schools are the same way. That now, like I was talking to some parents, and the girls had won so many turns. Like the girls golf team at this other school, I'm not going to name names, they were better than any other team fall sport, and they got no recognition whatsoever. I think we've come a long way as far as like women's athletics.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I think part of it is, I mean, we were always playing on the road, or, we're going out to Laurel Lake. So the access, like it's not a ball field. We're not right there
Right.
at the high school. You have to travel to get there. So I think people just don't realize it. And then it's women, right? It's women's athletics. I think we've come a long way. I mean, I am not complaining. I am so thankful. I mean, we were born right after Title IX, or right
Absolutely.
before Title
Yeah.
IX. And so, I mean, it's, the opportunities. I mean, college was free for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a full ride scholarship. Everything was paid. Some of my friends were jealous. Every semester I'd just go to the bookstore and I'd go upstairs and I'd show my ID and they'd hand me a bag or 2 bags full of all my books. Right. And they're stressing and I'm like, oh, I got my books. Right. And then they gave you a stipend so I could stay, and I didn't have to stay in the dorms. I could rent an apartment. So like I was always trying to keep it in that budget. And I got to travel. I mean, every coach's daughter played at Stanford. So every year we got to go play at Stanford
Hmm.
because of that, that connection that they had. So every year I'm going to Stanford. I got picked twice to go play in Japan.
Wow.
So here's some girl from Hartford City going to Japan twice. And I'm like, this is a wonderful opportunity. I mean, I'm like, I just told this story. I'm 23. I'm traveling to LA and I'm flying. I'm renting a car, and I'm lucky because I can rent a car because I'm 23 and traveling by myself. And I think we have definitely come a long way,
For
a
sure.
long way. You can still see the the disparity, but I think it's something that'll never occur in my lifetime. But like I have 3 boys that are they're in their senior year of high school. I have one boy, he made it to state finals. He plays at
Wow.
Carmel. He's 6'7".
Oh my
He's so tall.
gosh.
I know. He hits it like he plays it so far. I'm like, you're hitting a wedge where I would hit a 7-iron. Like I can't even process how far he hits it. But um, these are boys, high school boys that are listening to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
How cool is
and
that?
they're and I have another boy. He's not going to compete on the team, but he's just learning. But we're building a rapport, and he's 14. And I have boys that will listen to me, and I think that says a lot.
Boy, that's a cultural shift, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just
So yeah, I mean, it's nothing that I think like the appreciation won't happen in my lifetime, but we're setting up the factors, the stepping stones for it, right?
huge
Like,
strides.
yeah, I mean, we have made great progress, and I don't play the woman card very much, but I I don't watch women's golf. It's not on TV very much. I don't even really watch men's golf either. I watch the majors.
Hmm.
But I think women don't get the better golf courses, so they don't have the better putting greens and stuff. So the women are playing it a lot longer than what men are playing the golf courses, because the men have basically they hit it so far that the courses are now some of them are almost obsolete, right? I mean, they hit it so far. I mean, when you're hitting it 310, I mean, but women are hitting it 250, but the women, they can move them further and further back. Like so I played in 07 in the Open at Pine Needles, and we played it just under 6,700 yards.
Wow.
So, I mean, for women, most amateur men, you guys aren't, you're probably not playing it more than 62. So we're playing it 500 yards longer, and we don't have the strength, we don't have the capacity to hit it as far as men, but they're making it longer. So we're hitting, where we'd be hitting a 7-iron or a 6-iron in, men are hitting a wedge. So you're going to be a lot closer to the green, to the pin with a wedge than a 7-iron or a 6-iron statistically. So the men are getting lower scores. And
Everything
so,
she just said went so far.
hmm?
Everything that was just said went so far over my head that I'm like, I'm just thankful, to be able to get back on the cart after I hit, and my hip
Yeah,
not hurt.
oh, you need to learn where the target is. Once you know where the target really is,
Uh,
it changed how the way I taught. Once I saw how far right the target is from where you're standing. So but I love teaching, and I have a couple students, I'll be like, you want to try something? Let's try something today. Let's see, if this works. And sometimes it's a matter of, you have to kind of speak their language, and you have to,
mhm.
um, I tell them it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. You just have to throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Like, I'll tell you something, and then I'll tell you something else, and that might work. And it's the same thing that I told you before, but in a different way. And it ends up in the result that we want. It gets your body to do what we want just by saying it in a different way. So,
Incredible that you think about that. So as a softball coach, I thought a lot about the swing, and
hmm
boy, how much of that I've had to unteach myself to learn to golf. But there's some similarities too. Just the
hmm
the action that happens, and I think about some of those things, and it's helped me with my golf game. I think, I
hmm
don't know. I could
hmm
be. I'm a terrible golfer, Erica. It is what it is. I would love to get better so I can have conversations. And I hear, like, my current boss, Matt, is a great golfer. The guy's in his 60s and still, parring out. Like, he just makes it happen. But he talks about things that I'm like, what's you hit it in regulation? And I'm just picking up all these terms, and
Oh
kind of
yeah.
like what I did when I got into education. My first time going in, when I went back to college, I came home scared to death because the conversation that was happening in the classroom, in that college classroom, was so far beyond the language I'd heard before. I didn't understand it. It was hard for me to follow. But Jennifer, God bless her, she's like, look it up, and just
hmm
started educating myself. And I do the same thing. So I spent a lot of time sitting out back on my deck watching people golf, and I've learned how to cuss when I golf now. Uh,
Um,
but I have picked up some things. But it's that you got to educate yourself, and I'm hearing you say that same thing. That even though someone who is a professional golfer now, going back as a coach, teaching yourself how to become a better player through your coaching, because you had to go to
mhm.
that next level as a coach. You had to mentally become more analytic about everything that was happening. Couldn't rely on your talent to just be a coach.
No, no, and you just have to. Um, I was working with a guy, and he was like, "You need to find like as many ways to say one thing, to execute one,
Hmm.
body position or movement or something. Like you need to come up with 10 different ways to say it." And it's always interesting. I had a kid. He was in high school, and I knew how he's going to be an engineer, right? He just has that engineer
Hmm.
brain and mind. And I had tried everything. He kept swinging left, and I'm like, I'm trying water bottles, I'm trying noodles, I'm trying, keeping your chest back. I'm manipulating him. And then I took him, it was cold. I took him outside. We had a swing wall, and he did one swing, and he goes, I get it. So it's like you just have to find when they say they're an engineer or they're a math guy,
Yeah.
because math is not my strong suit. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to explain this to the tiniest detail so that hopefully you can, because the math people, the engineers, they have to understand the whys. When
Hmm.
I was getting lessons, when Laura and I were getting lessons with coach when I was 14, he'd say, swing with the stripe. And I'm like, okay, I swing with the stripe. The ball goes straight. 2 + 2 is 4. I didn't even think anything of it. I just did whatever he said because he was the end all be all of helping me get to my next level. And now it's like you have to find different ways, and some people need, like, I'm like, do you need to know why that helped? Because they'll, like the aha moment, right? I'll tell
Yeah.
them to do something, and they'll go, no, don't need to know. I'm like, okay. But other people are like, I need to know that. And so then you have to explain why. You have to understand the physics of the golf swing. And I tell them, I go, I went to Blackford. I don't know physics, didn't even take calculus, but I know the golf math. Let me figure out the golf math for you, and then this will make it a lot easier.
That's awesome. You know what I love this conversation, just seeing and hearing the passion you still have for the game after all these years. And when did you start golfing?
August 14th, 1978.
4 years old.
2 days after Andrea was born. Mom
Wow.
was still in the hospital. Laura had just turned 3, and Dad was jonesing to go play.
That's
And
awesome.
we lived in Peoria. He took us out. We were on the back nine. Nobody was around. I remember parts like the beginning before we even went out on the course. We were wearing like these little handmade, like Holly Hobby Hobbit, like
That's
little
awesome.
bonnets. And mine flew off. That's all I remember about the day. But Dad liked our swings, and he went home, and it was kind of ingenious. He cut up the old set of clubs. All he had was a men's set of clubs,
Mm-hmm.
and he cut them in half, and then put a slit in the top, and pushed the bottom into the top, and wired and taped them. So he telescoped them basically. So as Laura and I grew, because it's 1978, there's no golf,
Right.
and so there's no junior golf. And so then as we grew, he'd take off the tape and the wire, adjust them to our height,
Oh my
rewire,
gosh.
retape them. But the good thing is that we had golf clubs. The bad news is we're using men's weighted golf clubs. So no wonder why we were trying to kill the ball. No wonder why when we first saw Coach, he was like, excellent, because we had to swing as hard as we could just to get the club through the golf ball. So, it worked out. But I went to William Reed in first grade, and we could draw whatever we want. We'd have, free coloring time, and I would draw putting greens. Like, I have just been a golf nerd forever.
That's
And
awesome.
it's just what I am, right? It's what I am. And it's sometimes you kind of lose your identity a little bit. And they kind of talk about this with like LPGA players, like what happens when you retire? And a lot of women, that's our identity. I'm Erika the
Mm-hmm.
golfer. And so but there, you got to take the good with the bad, I guess. So, but I love the teaching end of it, and I love helping people play better. And like last week, I was I pulled up to the golf course, and I saw this guy. He was struggling, and I knew exactly what was going on. And I asked if he wanted help, because sometimes it's the older men that don't
Mm-hmm.
want lessons from women. They don't want to. They'd rather go to a man. And he's like, I'll take whatever advice. And I gave him some advice. And then he brought his daughter for a clinic last night. And
Oh,
he
that's
says, oh, I
awesome.
forgot to tell you, I went and hit balls, and I was hitting it great. It was awesome. And I'm like, perfect. Right. And so I gave him like 5 minutes of my life, and he's hitting it better. So he's happy. Right. So
Yeah.
it's just, there's a big phenomenon now where, if you get somebody, especially people under the age of 40, men and women, and then all women, when you tell somebody to keep their left arm, if they're playing right-handed, you tell them to keep their left arm straight, bring it across their chest, and keep their head down. It's a recipe for disaster. I will never say those things. Um, I actually I have a patent. I made a device that keeps your left arm, or your lead arm, if you're right, whichever one's facing so if you're playing right-handed, it's your left arm. If you're playing right-handed, it's
Gotcha.
if left-handed, it's your right arm. It keeps it bent, which goes against what everybody, people, like I tell people, I'm like, bend it. And they're like, but you're supposed to keep it straight. And I'm like, not straight like that. So it keeps it bent, and they hit it so much better. And so I don't know. It's just kind of sitting on the back burner right now.
I like
But
it.
my teenagers hate it. They hate putting it on. It's like I'm torturing them, and I'm like, it works. And they're like, I know, but I don't like it. And then I've had more adults go, can I take this home, or are you selling these, or because they feel the difference
Mm-hmm.
of what it does to their swing.
That's pretty
So,
awesome. So you
so
gonna do anything with this or not?
huh?
Are you gonna be able to do anything with it?
Well, I was actually, this is 3 years ago, I guess. It was before COVID. I think it was in 2019. Or no, it was 2018. I was a couple of weeks away. I'd met with manufacturers. I had a client that knew manufacturers in Taiwan, because in the United States, it is so expensive
Sure.
to get a die made, right? It's 150 grand. It's unbelievable. And so he had some manufacturers in Taiwan, and they were going to cut me a deal on making it, like the first so many were going to be at a higher price where the profit margin wouldn't be that good. But once I paid for the die, then it would drop. And I
Hmm.
was a couple of weeks away from agreeing to it. We're getting all the angles and everything set up. And I got denied. My patent got denied for the second time. And so I'm like, all right, I gotta, no, let's not make it yet because I want to make sure I get
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
protect myself on this patent. And so, I spent another, I don't know, 13, 14, I mean, $1,400 to get it. I mean, I could have had a house. I could have put a down payment on a house with how much money I've spent on getting it made and the prototypes. And I was living in my apartment by myself, and I bought a Amazon, a $40 sewing machine, and I'm sewing up sleeves. I am not a sewer. And
Uh,
you talk about the cursing. There was one day I almost threw the whole dang thing. I could not get it. I'm not a sewer. And I ended up like one snowy day sewing 28 straps. And my eyes were crossing, but I have some, but I haven't got them made because then like once I finally got the patent, that was the next year.
so you do have the
And then
patent.
I have the
Oh,
patent,
that's
but then,
awesome.
like was COVID, and then I just haven't. And then my client moved, and Taiwan's kind of in some weird stuff right
Yeah.
now. So I don't know whether I have that option available to me anymore. I just haven't even really looked into it. Um, but there's some things changing with where I'm at work, and so maybe I'll get the coverage that I would like. The people will like it, and then I'll be like, right now I've got to do something
Yeah.
about it because it's just kind of sitting on the back burner right now.
I'll, I'll give
I'm
you
not
some
doing it.
encouragement. There was a guy over, he's like the maintenance director over Muncie Schools, and I just met him
Mm-hmm.
this past summer. So um, he invented something called the Scorebox 21, and it's a LED score box for um, cornhole, right?
Oh,
But
mm-hmm.
it's all self-contained and has like cup holders. It's battery operated. It's pretty cool, pretty slick looking
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Uh-huh.
And actually, it was down at the state fair. He was like one of the sponsors, and they got to
Mm-hmm.
use, and basically promote his product. But kind of did the same thing. Went through the patenting process, and then and I don't think it's just him. I think there may be a couple other guys who are involved. I don't know them though, so the only person I get to promote is him. But anyway, so he had done the same thing. He looked for manufacturers, locally, basically within the states, wasn't able to find anything, and then sent it off overseas, and had to commit to like 20,000 of them or something
Mm-hmm.
within the first hour after he received them. First hour he pushed it out on social media and launched his website. He sold like 8,000 of them.
Oh wow.
Dude, just
That's
it.
good.
So there's some encouraging words there. You
I know. It's and the biggest obstacle that I'm against is that everybody thinks I'm an idiot because keeping the left arm straight is for like that's what everybody's told, right? So
right?
everybody, and so then I'm telling you, bend your arm, and they're like, this girl's nuts. But once I explain it, but I don't know.
Well,
But
it's funny you say
We'll
that
see.
because I've watched people out on the course, and I always watch that left arm stand straight as possible. I can't do that, and so
No,
I'm like, screw it. It doesn't work for me, and I have a bent left arm when I come across, and I just you know part of it's the mentality of my softball swing that's in there, and but it helps me get in a rhythm. I'm kind of I think of myself as a rhythmic striker, and when I hit it I have to be in rhythm. And
mm-hmm.
but if my arm's not bent, I feel like I'm the white guy out on the dance floor.
Well, and that's the thing. It's that elbow when you hyperextend because everybody keeps it. That's the problem is everybody hyperextends, but it's men about 5 years younger than us and lower. Or if you're like a gym rat and you work out a lot, then you can kind of torque it. But it takes that humerus bone when you hyperextend. It takes that humerus bone and twists it into your shoulder joint, and then your arm can't move. Like your arm is it's like stuck to your shoulder, so you can't swing out towards your target, so you don't have that flow like you're
Mm.
talking about. And if people, I go, bend your arm, and it's almost like they can't because it's just programmed. So that's the, like, if I look at the negative part of it, I'm like, but people think I'm an idiot because it goes against. But when I sent to Dad, I did this cheesy presentation several years ago, like the Indiana, like that the golf coach, they had the Indiana high school coaches meeting or something in Plainfield, and I went, and all the 5 or 6 golf coaches were there, and I'm explaining it. And so I've sent that to a lot of people, and they're like, oh, that explains what's going on. I mean, it causes injuries. I mean, I have a thumb that is a party thumb. It's a trick thumb. And then I've had 3 girls under the age of 20 have to have hip surgeries, because when you do that, it's not just the elbow. Now you can't turn, and so they just start sliding, and then they tear their labrum. They tear a ligament in their hip, and then they have to have them surgically reattached. And so I'm trying to do it to help their golf game, but also keep them from being injured, because I've had enough injuries for everybody.
Do you have a name for this thing?
I call it the key.
I love
Unlock
it.
your swing. Unlock your swing.
Oh, that's so good.
So it's called the key. So
I love it.
It's one of my students, she came up with, she's like, I'm like, I got to come up with a name, and I don't want to name it after myself. And she's like, what about the key? Because you unlock your arm. I'm like, great.
That's
Perfect.
so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
You got to keep your arm. You have to keep your arm what we call flexed.
Is there any anywhere we could see this thing in action? And you have like a YouTube video? And I know you're real technically advanced.
I haven't even done that. I haven't even gone that far yet. I do have a gal though she's going to be my poster child. She was doing some practice swings, and then I put that on her, and the difference in her golf swing in 7 minutes is unbelievable. Like how she looked and in the backswing at impact, and then on her forward swing is just astronomically different. She'll be and I have the first guy, I guess I'll tell you the story. My first guy is it was like my arm. We're down in the cart barn, and this guy that I know who is making a car, he brought fiberglass. It was fiberglass. So I have this thing burning on my arm, and it's my arm bent at the degree that I wanted it. And then he just crudely put some Velcro on there. And so he brought it out, and my student, I think he's 51 now. So this is like 8 years ago when he did it. And he put it on. He's like, oh my gosh. He called me the next day, and he goes, oh my gosh, it feels like my shoulder. And I'm going to just tell you how graphic he was. He goes, it feels like my shoulder took a dump after 20 years. And I said, that's great. Well, we're going to use that. We're going to change the verbiage on that when we get the marketing program going. We're not going to say it in that way, but he's like, he could not believe how much better his shoulder felt when he wore that thing. Cause he wasn't necessarily hyperextending, but he was torquing, trying to keep that arm so straight that he was damaging his shoulder to do it. So, wow. But we are definitely going to change the verbiage on, we're going to spruce it up.
Not going to use like crap and,
yeah,
poo-poo.
Exactly.
I felt like I was effing it
amazing.
up.
It's amazing.
Man, that's exciting.
Yeah. I just haven't done anything with it. It's time. So,
it's time. I'm sitting here so excited for you. It's time. Who cares what anybody thinks?
I know. But then, anyway.
We gonna date him? You already got a boyfriend. What the heck?
I know. So no, but now it's just a matter of getting those manufacturers again.
Yeah.
So I have to find my client and see if it's still off, if the offer still stands. If it's Taiwan, I might want to wait a few months. But then once I get them made, then I'll be pimping them out.
Man, I love it. I want to know. Like,
okay.
You don't want me to be your poster child, that's for sure.
No.
Look, well, I mean, but
if you're hyperextending, it might help. It might feel better. Don't keep your arm straight, folks. Do not keep your arm straight. You can't.
I don't play by the rules.
The guy I used to work with, he couldn't do it either. He couldn't keep his arm. When he did his left arm straight, he couldn't hyperextend. So I'm guessing you can't hyperextend, but it's the people that can. It's all women and then younger men. So I put my tinfoil sombrero on why, like, younger guy. Well, it's, all women can hyperextend, right? We're different because we have estrogen. So now and there's estrogen in everything. So maybe their ligaments are getting loose too because they're drinking. Oh man.
Wow.
Who knows? All I know is that the kids nowadays are way more flexible. Their joints are way more flexible. And then you add in, like, there was a study done North Carolina, University of North Carolina or South Carolina, millennial men are weaker than their mothers.
What?
They lost 19 pounds of grip pressure in one generation.
That's really interesting.
Hmm.
Because
So it,
honestly, I would think almost the opposite because of the amount of gaming they've done.
mhm.
But that
But then
means they're not outside with a shovel.
they're not out. And think about like how we would ride our bikes. We
Oh
would go,
man.
it would be like, leave. My parents would be like, you're going to go out of the house. Right. And now we keep them inside. So
Right.
they weren't riding their bikes. They aren't doing the sports like they used to. They're just using their hands, right? They're not using their forearms. They're not.
Our
And so,
generation and younger, we were hanging on for our dear life. In the
mhm.
car, we were hanging on for dear life. We didn't have a seatbelt.
Well,
You know,
and we had to roll down the window, right?
that's
I
right.
mean, there
And
was,
change the
and
channel.
yeah, we had to get, so, I mean, we were more manual,
That is
right?
so
Yeah. And
true. That's really interesting.
so when you factor that in, I almost like I watch like gymnastics and they're hyperextended. I see, baseball pitchers, they're getting their elbows hyperextended when they
Oh
throw,
man,
and you just kind of
that's
wonder, I'll look at a yoga ad and you can see the lady's hyperextended and you're like, oh lady, you are tearing up your shoulder. But but that study was pretty interesting, and I was like, no wonder why, because I was like, all women can do it, and then why are these younger guys doing it? And then I think it's because
that's
they've lost that
interesting.
grip pressure,
Yeah,
so
that
they can't.
rigidity of the
Mhm.
the muscle structure. It's
So
really
when they
interesting.
hyperextend, they lock that arm into place, so then it won't bend, right? Otherwise, if they didn't do that, then it would bend, and then they get yelled at, right? Because you're supposed to
Right.
keep your left arm straight. So and then all the other sports like the gymnastics. Think about it. I mean, you hyperextend, that's where you get your strength, where you don't have that strength when you're, flexed or
Hmm.
quote, at 0 degrees, they're at like negative, 6 degrees. I've seen some pictures where people had to be minus 15. Well, I broke my elbow when I was 12 and had to have surgery. And on the right elbow, I had to, 2 pins and a figure 8 wire. And when he took it out, then he was doing measurements, and he's like, "Oh, you're at like a negative, or you're at like plus 10 degrees or something like that." He's like, "That's pretty good. Let me see your left arm." And I straightened out my left arm, and it went to minus 11. And I laughed at the time. I didn't even think about it. My elbow is negative 11 degrees. Yeah,
I
and
don't.
all women.
Yeah, I mean that's bizarre. I'm so for all my listeners, I'm now got my arm out. See,
it's
I don't think I have any negative. Like it's, oh,
it's 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 crazy. Like
it's
I've had it in my cart, I think, before on Amazon. I've had it in my Amazon cart to get those little, discs that the doctors have that do the degrees of
oh
bend
yeah,
and stuff. And I'm like, I got to show my kids, like they're at negative degrees, and if we get them to 0, that's a straight arm. But we have to decide, we have to redefine what our idea of straight is, because it's definitely not in the negatives, because it's
right.
hurting a lot of people, hurting a lot of people.
I've
So
never I've never thought about that. You know, and
it's
as a swing coach, I never thought about the negative, like hyperextension of their elbow in a
mhm.
softball swing. Now you got me thinking about it. Like I'm
Yeah.
reviewing the number of
What, like,
times.
what that would do to their shoulder, right? And it's
Right,
it's not what it does to their elbow; it's what it does to their wrists, their hands,
right, because
their
it's all
shoulder.
alignment.
Then once that happens, like for golf, then they start tilting, right? Because they can't turn, so now they tilt their hips, so now their hips are uneven,
Hmm.
so now they're hurting their hips. I've had a couple of girls, they will hyperextend their knees when they're swinging,
Like
and I'm like,
backwards.
yes,
Oh,
like it goes backwards, and I'm like, okay, that. And I'm like, kind of, and I used to be able to do that. Like, and Laura was my sister, was she could really hyperextend her legs, and I'm like, that has to be hurting your hips in some way. Has to
right.
be hurting. Now you're getting the femur up in there, and it's like, I don't know. I think maybe I've thought too much about the golf swing, and I think about I think more about the kinesiology of
No,
everything.
that's good though. I mean, that just shows where you're at with your teaching part of it, and when you really start thinking about the the long-term effects.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that short-term reward. What's the
Mm-hmm.
long-term effect of this? And as a teacher, I thought about that a lot. How the words I say and my body language. I thought about
Mm-hmm.
my body language when I was teaching, when I was a disciplinarian, for a few years. Well, God, I was a disciplinarian longer than anything else, but but I always thought about my body language in that conversation, and I was very conscious of that and how I just communicated without
Mm-hmm.
saying a word sometimes and try to
Oh,
make sure it was purposeful. And you do that. You do that as a coach. You're thinking about, all right, if I, your coach walking away, you were talking about your coach walked away and
they're
you're
like,
like, where's he going?
do it.
Where's he going? What's happening? Okay, now I
Yeah.
got to win.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And like when I was, but like when I was, I am now like the body language, like when I watched my girls at regionals last weekend, um, they walk off the green and they've just had a double or a triple or something. And I'm just like, just big smiles
Yep.
and just like, yay. And they just, or they, one girl made a up and down and I'm woo. And she's, embarrassed, but she's laughing, right? Because her swing coach is there making an idiot of herself, right? And so they're just like laughing. The mom's like, oh my gosh, you got a smile out of her. And, because I want them to be, because I'm not going to get mad at them. I'll get mad at them if they bang their clubs
Right.
or if they're telling me that they're practicing and they're not, and I know when they're not,
Oh,
because you
it's
can tell.
clear. Very clear.
I'm like, this is like when you went to the dentist and you brushed your teeth right before you went. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. I can see it because we're going to repeat the same thing that we said last week. I've had to do that with both adults and kids.
Sure.
I've had to say, uh, I call them coming to Jesus meetings. I'm like, we need to practice. And I don't want to see you again until you get so many times of practice. And sometimes it works. Sometimes I don't ever see them again.
Boy, that
But
self-discipline piece. Yeah.
they, the guy was like, when I first went to teaching year round or teaching full time, the guy I was working with, he said, Erika, you just have to admit that they're not going to practice as much as you did. And I'm even
It's
trying to
true.
give them stuff that they can do at their house, right? Because the parents are, like some people, we all have lives, right? We can't go to the driving range. Sometimes it's just too much of a hassle to get there, or we just don't have time. I'm giving them stuff that they can do for 5 or 10 minutes in the yard. Like I'm just like, I know you're not going to practice. So let's just do 5 or 10 minutes in the yard, please. And you can tell when they don't and
But
who's
boy,
taking it.
how much that adds up over time. You do 5 or 10 minutes, 5 days a week. Uh,
Mhm,
10 minutes, that's an hour. You
mhm.
just put
And
an
that's I've
hour.
had that. I'm like, how much have you practiced? I've given you drills. I go, if you would have just done 10 minutes, you would have had an hour practice time in. You would have already been ahead, or you would have been, that's, and they're like, and you could just see they're shrinking. And I'm like, but who else is gonna tell you this? And especially the kids, because wasting my time, their parents' money, if all we're gonna do is just keep repeating the same thing week after week after week, and I want everybody to see improvement. I want them to not need me,
Right.
right? I want them to play
That's
well enough that they don't need to see me anymore. They
that's
don't
the
need to see me as
value.
often. Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
value. That's that I don't know. I think about how you build your business and how you build your reputation, and it's result oriented.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
very,
yeah, I mean,
very.
you got somebody that's not going to practice. I may not be the right coach for you.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
And sometimes you got to admit that you're not the right coach for that
sure.
person. Period. I had one kid. I was like, okay, is the club touching the ground when you're addressing the ball? Like when he's just standing there right before he swings, he goes, yeah. And I go, so if it's touching the ground, then why do we need to get lower on the way down to hit the ball? And he goes, I don't know. I just think it does. And my inside voice was like, well, this is our last lesson together. And sure
Yeah.
enough, I was right. It was like, I mean, he thinks that you have to dip down to hit the ball. And I'm like, I'd rather you stand up to hit the ball. And I was like, well, I'm not on the same level with this kid. So
Yeah.
you can't please them all. You're not going to win with everybody. You're not going to get and then sometimes, I think people get overwhelmed with, you come to me, I'm not going to give you a band-aid. I'm going to give you drills, and I'm going to change your swing path if it needs changed. I'm going to fix things, and I'm going to help you hit that nice little baby draw that you want, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. And I think some people maybe are just like they're overwhelmed with what they have to do. And I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's just, again, like the 5-10 minutes a day, right? You just do this a little bit and you'll see the results, but you won't see the results immediately. And I think that's one of the problems with golf is you watch the people on TV and
Man.
it's so easy. And so why can't I do it? Or, I've played all these other sports. Why can't I hit a golf ball? And I'm like, well, because it's so counterintuitive and we're swinging around our
Oh my
bodies, hitting the
gosh.
ball and like going like when I saw where the target really was, I mean, that target, because we're standing off of the ball, that target's 30 to 80 yards right of where your eyes are telling you, because it's in line with the golf ball, not you.
Yeah.
And so you show people that, like I'll walk out about 6 paces in front of the golf ball and I'll say, now here's our target. We're going to this thing. Now, where do I put this stick? So it's right there on that line. And they'll put the stick in. I go, now address the ball. Now step up to the ball like you're going to hit. And they'll step up and they'll look at the stick and they'll look at their target. And I'm like, I bet your eyes are telling you here. And it's well left. And that's why everybody comes over the top. When I saw it in those terms, because coach always just told me to swing out to first base, hit the inside quarter of the ball. And that was my 2 + 2 is 4. But once I saw it in terms of that target is so much further right than what your eyes are telling you, and you have to trust it, that's where it changed how I teach. But once you kind of understand that target's way to the right, then you understand why everybody tells you to swing to first base and why you keep hitting, swinging left. And then you get that big old slice, you get that big banana ball.
I call it Tron.
Yeah.
I call it Tron.
I'm the opposite because of I have a wonky thumb because of the hyperextension. I just hook it.
Oh
I
man.
can hit a hook like it's nobody's business. I think I was on tour and I think I had to I hit it left and I had to hit around this pine tree with a pitching wedge. And I'm like, I can do this. I got a hook. I can hook a pitching wedge. And I did. And my caddy was even impressed. Like, now you put a gun to my head and tell me to cut it. I'll be like, good, nice knowing you. I can't hit that left to right ball very well anymore, but I can hit a hook like it's nobody's business.
Wow. Yeah, I rarely hit left. It's usually the banana, or I call it Tron, because it literally goes out 100 yards and just goes right turn Clyde. And I'm like, God bless. Why can't every hole be a dog leg to the right?
Yeah, you got to play some Nicholas courses because he likes to fade. So that's where you need to go. But you need to swing to first base
Okay.
as your hands are rotating to third. The entire time your hands are your
get it.
hands are swinging to first base, you're rotating your hands to third the entire time. I have so many people, they think that they have to, like you're turning your hands over, release the club. Have you heard that? Like turn your hands over, release the club. They think that they can do that right there at the ball. And so I'll say, so Scott, what's the fastest you've driven a car?
I can't answer that.
Okay, so let's say you're going, can't answer that, and I say turn now.
Yeah.
There's no way, right? You're going to flip
the
car, right? So you're probably, I'm guessing, swinging your 7-iron 80 miles an hour, and you're trying to turn your hands right at the ball.
Okay, I get it.
Good. You can't do it. You got to swing out to first, and the entire time you're swinging to first, you're rotating those hands, like. And then once you hit a hook, then you just don't have to turn your hands that much. But the amount of rotation that it takes to hit that ball even straight is beyond what most people even can like what they think they would have to do.
I get it.
I
in my head, I'm playing this off and trying to figure out in my language when I talk about it, it's wrist snap. Is what I'm mentally thinking is that wrist snap. I'm trying to do that at the ball.
It's too late. You're already past.
Okay, I see.
That club head's your club head's going at least, I'm saying 60, probably closer to 80 or 90 even. With a driver, it's going even faster, and you're trying to snap your wrist right there at the ball.
Right. No, I get it.
It's done. It's done. So I have a gal. She's our age. And she's only 2 weeks older than me, and she's a lefty. And I'm like, turn your hands to the right, turn your hands to the right. And she goes, fine. She's acting like, she's a teenager, right? She's like, fine. She was going to show me. She was going to snap hook this thing so far right because she's left-handed, right? And so she turns her hands, what she thinks is astronomical. Ball goes dead straight. And her response is, "This game is dumb." And I'm like, "It is, like, it takes so much more than what you think." So it's just, I try to show people why, and I think especially the adults, right? Because I think we have a better understanding. Like if I tell a kid to turn their hands, they're like, "Okay, I'll just turn my hands." Where an adult's like, "You're full of,"
Yeah.
you're, so you have to show them why and what, and explain it to them, like how fast. Like when I ask them, like how fast have you driven, they look at me like, "Where are you going with this?" I'm like, trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. So, but you need to swing as far right as you can as you turn your hands, as far left as you can. And I'm banking on the fact that you're going to hit it straight with, or maybe a baby draw. And if you start hitting a hook, then enjoy the left side for a while, or just don't turn your hands that much.
Sure.
But you just got to keep swinging as far right as you can. And
it's really interesting when you put it in the terms of how fast have you gone. I know I've had a motorcycle over 170 mile an hour, so I don't know how fast I've been in the car, probably 120 something. I don't know. I never like going fast in the car because I'm afraid I'm going to turn right. Motorcycle really won't allow you to do that.
Yeah. And so you just have to keep turning. You have to turn your hands. You got to start snapping your hands, as you call it. I hate saying roll. I don't like saying it. You've got to roll the right hand on top of the left. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
The entire forward swing as you're swinging out to first base.
I think my problem is I start dipping my right shoulder and it opens that palm up again.
So what I just saw, you just tilted that right shoulder. And so what that's going to do is that's going to leave the face wide open. And now your path is going left.
Yeah.
Which
makes the ball go way right.
Which makes the ball goes to the right, right? I had a guy this year, he had been shanking it, and he's a good player. He's like a single digit handicap, and he'd been trying for a week to get rid of the shanks. And so I give him this emergency lesson, and he shows up and he comes to me, and I'm like, "All right, you got to swing to the right." And you could just see his brain's like, "But we go to the right." And I'm like, "We got to swing to the right. Just trust me. Just do it. And I'm like, I do all these little drills, and we got drills that you can, do to help you swing that way. And he went and played like 2 days later, and he shanked one on the 18th hole, and he was able to get up and down for par.
Wow.
He was able to get par on it, but he was but he was swinging so far left that the ball was shooting to the right, and but you're with you tilting that shoulder. So like I'll tell students, so how tall are you? Like, are you 5'11"?
I'm 6'1".
6'1"?
Yeah.
Okay. So at 6'1", I want you to feel like you're 6'4" at impact.
It's so interesting you say that, because I was going to say that earlier when you were talking about the kid getting lower on the ball. I'm like, holy crap, everything tells me I want to be bigger. I want to be as tall as possible in that swing to make my swing, I call it a circle. I'm thinking of, girls softball. I want that circle to not be a circle. I want it to be an ellipse. I want it to be longer, more of an oval than a circle. And so I don't know if that translates to golf swing or not, but I definitely want to be taller so that when I come through, I'm able to use my hips more. Because I feel like when I'm taller, I can utilize my hips.
Well, and then when you're taller, I think it's easier to tell somebody to be taller because it's easier to control your head, right? Than me say, "Hey, Scott, don't tilt your right shoulder down." Because if I tilt my shoulder, now I'm down, right? Now I'm lower. But if I try to stay tall, then my shoulder, instead of tilting, now it's going to turn on its plane that we need it to go on its circle.
I love how you think, like, I love how you've broken down this golf swing. Obviously you have. I mean, think about, they talk about 10,000 hours as expert level. And I'm thinking, holy crap, how many 10,000 hours, how many multiples of 10,000 hours does Erika have into golf?
And the 45 years,
holy
a lot.
Crap,
A lot. I mean, we figured, I probably, one day we kind of did the math, and we were like, I probably hit 1.5 to 2 million practice balls. And so I told a student that, and because she had a good shot, and I go, "Okay, with this little drill that we did, I go, okay, now 8 million more, give or take a couple million, and you're set." And her dad's like, "Well, that's a lot." And I go, "Well, I hit, about 2 million practice balls." And he goes, "That's a lot of playing." And I'm like, "No, that's not even counting my scores.
Right.
That's just me practicing on the range." I never saw that kid again.
Oh my gosh.
Because I think,
you blew him out.
this lady's going to make me practice too
You
much.
blew him
I
out.
want to, yeah. I mean, and that's where, the guy I was working with was like, well, you got to admit, you have to admit to yourself that they are not going to practice as
Yeah.
much as they want. And I can't blame them. I mean, I was excited with dial up. I mean, that's how old we are, right? I mean, you'd hear that whirring and you're like, woo. And now, like, if kids have to wait 4 seconds for the internet to
Yeah.
come up,
Oh
they're
my
like, oh,
God.
it's such an instant, and it's, technology has made everything now and fast and instant that there's a process to some, if you want to get good at some things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some things, I mean, it doesn't take as much practice, but if you want to get better, it takes a lot more effort to do it. But we live in a society where instantaneous pleasure and success,
We don't see
you
that
know,
back end. We don't see the back end work that went into it. You know,
mm-mm.
like uh, for real, I've thought a lot about your process, and not just since we talked. I've thought about, where you've taken yourself and through the effort you've put in to get to the level you got to, and to do what you're doing now. I mean, you get to play golf for a living, for God's sakes, you know?
I play like twice a year.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you're
Yeah, I
playing
mean, I'm not.
golf. Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'm teaching, like, right now this year. I'm teaching at Purgatory. I'm teaching at Plum Creek. I'm
Wow.
teaching at Dyes Walk, and I'm teaching at Martinsville. And Martinsville is one of my favorite golf courses. My coach it's been in the Carmichael family for almost 100 years, and it has if a golf course can have an aura. This golf course has an aura,
Yeah.
and you're just out there, and you're in southern, and you're in south of Indy, right?
Yeah.
So it's hilly, right?
Yeah.
And you've got this stunning, these big trees and just the hills, and it's just it's wonderful. And then teaching at Dyes Walk, it's a private country club, and everybody is so nice and they're so kind, and they're like, Erika, and they've been so supportive through my little hobbling phase this year, and they're just great. They're like, oh, you're getting around better, and I feel like I'm hobbling, I'm limping even more, and they're just so nice. But I mean, you're out on the golf course, and you get to, like, like this year I have this great kid. He's in junior high, and I play the kids. I get, or like, I kind of do what Todd Geyer did for Laura and I. And I'll say, if you get a 6 or less on this hole, I'll give you $1. And if you get a par, I'll give you this. So I tell this kid going to the the third hole at Dyes Walk. It's a par 3, and it's kind of tough. And I say, if you get a birdie, I'll give you $10. I almost told him if he got a hole in one, I'd give him 100. But I was like, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
Right.
That little kid, he hit that ball. It rolled right past the cup and was 2 feet away.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I'm taking pictures of him. It was his first birthday, right? And I tell him, and then I had to admit, I think all I got is a 20. And he goes, I think my dad could give you change. And so, like, he was so excited. And so I waited until the next week, and I gave it to him. And I'm like, don't tell your dad, because I think he'd be upset that I gave you $10 for your birdie. I mean, it's just kind of, I got to experience that with that kid,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he darn near hit it in, and I'm like, that is awesome, right? It's so good that you get to see these people hit good shots, and you're out. I mean, you're out on the golf course. I mean, how awful can life be?
That's what I'm saying. Like, for real. Like,
I
for
mean,
real. You've
I
earned
mean,
it. You've earned every
yeah,
bit of this.
there's long days, and I will say that the driving is kind of getting old.
Sure.
And then, and so, but like last year, I think I rode off like over 19,000 miles that I'd driven in my car. And that's just to those to those courses and stuff. And sometimes you drive down there and you get rained out, or you
Right.
drive down there and you get one lesson. So I'm like, well, this is kind of a waste. But I mean, but you're still at the golf course, and you're still having fun, and I mean, and most people are like, well, I'd rather be here than at work. And they're like, just, and I'm like, well, but when this is work, it kind of, like, when it was on tour,
sure.
it kind of changed. Like,
Sure.
when and so in 2007, when I did make the Open again, I hadn't competed in 4 years, and coach is caddying for me. It's at Pine Needles, and just down the road from Pinehurst. And there were a few other gals that had qualified, and we had all quote unquote retired from, the tour life. And we're all like, oh my gosh, you look great. We're all smiles and we look well rested. And then I'm looking at the players that had been there those last 4 years. They hadn't left, right? And they were grinding it out. And I recognized their faces, and I was like, that was me. Because it's all you do, it's all you think about. It's a grind and it's hard work. And then, you got to add in all the other parts that you don't realize that we talked about, right? The traveling
Oh
and
my
stuff.
gosh. So yeah, I'm glad you came back to that because I had never really put in the mental time to think about there's such a huge difference between a female professional or any female athlete and a male. And you're talking about being an adult and having a child, having, or multiple children, and the responsibility of motherhood. And as a father, I got fatherly responsibilities, but it's nowhere near the planetary solar system that Jennifer as a mom put in and still does. So
Mhm.
just the sheer amount of mental space that motherhood occupies for her, it
Mhm.
dwarfs what I do as a dad. And that's
It,
just being one. And I feel like I'm a pretty darn good dad, but nowhere even close to the mental gymnastics she does as a mother.
mhm.
And so when you were talking about, you know, those ladies having kids and out on tour with them, 3 a.m. They're oh man, I never really
I,
put that together.
yeah, like that's it. I mean, and that's something that I mean, that was not in the cards for me. And, I just can't imagine, but the tour is wonderful in the regards that they have daycare.
Oh,
So
that's
you just
awesome.
drive, and they have these people that are working every week. And the daycare, they put everything in the same spot every week, because I would get tired of living out of a suitcase and traveling. And like, you get to the end of the year, and this one gal she said, somebody asked where I was, and I had to look around the locker room, because you don't even know what state. I mean, you're in a different state every week. So these little kids are traveling with you. They might think it's fun for a
Oh
while.
man.
So at least the daycare is the same, the facility looks the same to them, and that's some kind of normalty for them. But I do know that there's some gals that they still have their children on tour with them. There's some, but then I think there was Lorena Ochoa. She was really good, and she got married and she wanted kids, and she said, I can't, I choose not to bring my child into this kind of a situation. And it's tough.
Hmm.
And it's I, I don't discredit her at all, and
Absolutely not.
I don't discredit the people that decided to bring their children on tour. Because if I would have had children, I would have brought them on tour. Because because generally the dads are at home, or they'll come and visit everyone, because they're the ones having to keep the house and home set up. And because I mean, especially back in the day, we weren't making as much money.
Right.
So I finished fourth, and I made 29,000, I think. So it's it sounds like a lot,
No, I
but
get it, but no, you're right. You got the travel, you've got the investment in your clubs, and were you sponsored or anything? Was there
I had
sponsorships?
some sponsors. So coach was able to get me some investors when I first graduated from IU. Bobby Knight was one of them. So no trash talking on Bobby Knight, because he was a good man to me. But he was able to get me some people. I do think he was given wrong advice, because he asked somebody how much I needed, and they said 40,000 would be enough. And my last year, so this is 1999, my last full year on the LPGA tour, I wrote off $85,000. So if you're writing that off, you have to kind of make that.
Oh,
Otherwise,
wow.
so and then after, like, and then I took a time off from I had to take a year off because I had to have thumb surgery and stuff, and then I was kind of doing both the mini tour and the LPGA. And then we had 9/11, and then things really got expensive. Like
Yeah.
car rentals got even more expensive, and flights got even more expensive, so I can't even imagine. And then the tour, it used to be 1 week over at the British Open, and that was it. And so if you weren't like I never went to the British because the fields on the tournaments before and after weren't as quote unquote strong. So you had a better chance of playing better because those better players weren't there.
Yeah.
And so I would never go. But now they go like the British, and then they go Evian, and then they go. So you're overseas for 3 or 4 weeks. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine how expensive it is now. Like when I think about it, I'm so thankful I'm old and I got all that stuff out and I did it, and because it would be even more difficult now.
But
It was
you do see them, they're getting legit big sponsorships. At least the top
yes.
end players are. You know what I mean?
The top ones
Yeah.
are. It's the smaller ones that I mean, we get free clubs and free balls and hats and gloves, so that's good. And then you usually just kind of depend on local people from your hometown or your home state or something to kind
Hmm.
of give you money for sponsorships and um, but that's usually how it goes. And you just kind of sign a contract and you give them money back, and if you win it enough, right? If you win enough, then I was fortunate. I had people, and but I should have probably 40,000 obviously is not enough.
Right.
So if you have a little slump, then you're really no. So now I have a $9,000 credit card I have to pay next week, and I don't make any money. I'm not making enough, or I'm in a slump, and you're missing cuts, and you still have to pay your caddies.
Right. I
And
was going to say the caddies aren't free.
no, no, no. And they're way more expensive now than what they were. I think now they're last I heard, this a few years ago, was $1,000 a week. And
Wow.
then you pay a percentage. So back in my day, when like my rookie year, it was 500 like a week, and then a
Man.
percentage. And then by the time I got off tour, it was a minimum of six, if not 700 plus the percentage. So it's but the caddies are it is getting better. The caddies are better, more sponsorships. I mean, the U.S. Open was on primetime TV this year. I mean, at Pebble Beach, right? I mean, so it's making strides. It's again not the quick, fast improvement that a lot of people I hear people complain about. I'm like, but I still bring up the point that I've got several boys, three playing competitive golf, that are listening to me, which I think says a ton about what is going to, because if they're listening to me, they're going to listen to other women, and then they're going to teach their children to listen, that women might know what what they're talking.
100%. Yeah, and I love seeing, just highlighting. I watch a lot of NFL, not a lot, like, but I'm a fan. And when they highlight the women that are coaching at that level, that are officiating, and it sends a message. Those things send a message. And as a junior high educator for 9 years, I have seen a lot of disrespect toward women that I didn't experience. It just wasn't how I was brought up, but I've seen a lot of it. And now that we see women being brought into, and I'm air quoting,
Hmm.
men's arenas, um,
Hmm.
boy, that's they're micro messages, but on a big screen. You know.
Yeah. I feel like we're making strides, and but it still exists. I mean, I think that it's the older generations, but you just kind of have to just take it and let it roll off, right? Like my first quote unquote teaching gig was at this par, what was it? Par like 30. It was a short. It was like I had a couple par fives on it and some mostly par threes, and I was the head pro, right? And I was like, I'm the head professional at this little 9-hole golf course, right? And but it was my first gig. I was happy. I was
That's right.
excited. And I would tell these guys, I'd be like, hey, you're up on the tee next. And they're like in their 60s or 70s. They're like, hey, thanks, hon. And I
Ugh.
go, is that how you talk to your head golf professional? And they're like, you're funny, babe. And then they just leave. And like that was within my first couple of weeks. And I just went, all right, I either can take offense or I just let it roll off. And I just give it right back to them. And generally they make comments, and then I'll give them comments right back. And they're taken aback. And then, I'll just talk like one of the guys, right? I mean, I've been
Yeah.
playing golf with you men since I was 7, right? So I can come back with some stuff and go right into the gutter like you do too. And then they're kind of like, oh well, you know. And so it's always kind of funny. Or we'll be playing golf and there'll be some women in front of us and they're like, oh, women. And I go, yeah, those damn women. We couldn't even allow them to vote. Where are they out of the house? And they'll like because I don't play like like at the Mrs. Havenkamp from Caddyshack,
Right.
even when I'm so bad, right? And it's almost like they kind of forget that they're playing. They're like, well, you're different, Erica. But I'm like, but they see the error. But I think most guys, most men that I meet, they wish their wives played
Sure.
or
I wish
play
Jennifer
more.
played. I would love for Jennifer to go out and play with me. I would spend a
Mhm.
lot more time on the course. If,
Well, and there's a lot of golf vacations. There's the CLOs, the cute little outfits. But I mean, that women. I mean, I wore the pleated Dockers, and now I have all like microfiber, right? So it's all good. But there's great outfits and there's great places to play, and you get to. I mean, Joe and I, we just go out and we just have fun. We'll go down to Madison, and we'll go play Cozy Acres.
oh yeah,
We'll go play that
yeah,
little par 3 course, and we have so much fun playing that golf course. And there's cussing, and
that's
then
right.
there's laughter, and we just go and have fun together, right? We went this Monday. I didn't have any lessons, so we went out and played, and we just went out and had fun. But I think most men they want their wives to play. They wish they could go play with their wives a little bit, and most of them are very receptive. But you get the few, and then I'm kind of reminded like, oh yeah, I'm a gal, right? I
Mhm.
get it there. But I think that things are definitely improving as far as like the women in sports and women in
100%.
male dominated worlds. um it's just not happening as fast as some people want, but I'm like, hey, this takes time. I mean, it's like I said, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to see the full equality or in my
Sure.
lifetime, but and who knows, maybe it never will be. But I'm at least, I know that there's a lot of guys out there that are going to there's a lot of men or boys that are going to have children that will teach their kids that, you can learn a lot from a woman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to preface that with saying Jennifer doesn't want to play because she hasn't played. And she's like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm terrible. I don't want to be. She's very competitive in that way. And I'm like, have you watched me? Like, you see me. I play military golf. I'm left, right, left, right,
Hmm.
left, right. You know, I shoot an 8 on a 3 just
But
because.
the golf is very intimidating to women because it is male dominated, and we'll watch you guys and you guys hit it far. Now
Sure.
I watch you guys and I know you're hitting it far, but also right and left,
That's
right?
right.
And I know that if you guys actually counted if you counted all your strokes, you wouldn't be
Oh,
playing
God,
as
it's
well,
terrible.
right? There's a lot of mulligans out there. There's a lot of, oh, just throw one downs, right? But the women see that and they get intimidated and they feel like they're not hitting it as far, or their husbands are out there trying to help them learn how to play. And men are problem solvers. And they're like, well, do this. And they say it in terms that go over your head. Like I was talking about, the
Right.
US Open, and it goes over their head and they have no idea what you're talking about. And then you guys end up fighting on the golf, and then, somebody ends up on the couch. And so, but I think that like we like at Dice Walk and at Martinsville, at Dice Walk we call it sips and tips, and at Martinsville I call it wine and whiff, and we start with alcohol. Like we get the girls, a little cocktail, and then they sip on those, and then they kind of relax a little bit. It kind of takes the edge off, and then we can go have fun, and we can learn how to hit some shots,
Hmm.
and I'll go through the don't, we don't want to keep our left arm straight. We don't want to keep our head down. Like and I explain it to them and they start laughing, and because I show them what happens to them. And, so it gets some of the gals out, and it just, you got to get out there and just have fun, and just, everybody plays bad. Everybody, I mean, and
It's
no,
true.
like if you look up the statistics, like Nate, like worldwide, how many golfers break 100, and it's only like 20%.
Right.
I mean, the number is very, but people think, oh, if you really counted everybody's strokes, right, then they wouldn't be shooting the scores that they are. But they take mulligans. They take mulligans, and they throw one down where they're supposed to go back.
Yep.
If they hit out of bounds, they go back. They just throw one down, and they're like, all right, I'm hitting three. Well, really, you'd be hitting three from the tee box, but let's not discuss that. So, but you know, and then unfortunately, like some gals go out and play, and then they get into these ladies groups, and then there's rules. There's so many rules. I think you just have to go out and I've played in 5 U.S. Opens. We go out there, rules. There's a lot of gray area. Oh, you're by a route, just move. But especially when it's just regular golf. Like
Sure.
if it's just like I'm like, this is not the U.S. Open, people. We need just go out and have fun
Let's
and
have
hit the
fun.
ball.
That's
Go,
man.
just go out and go chase it. And if you're, especially women, we all look behind because we don't want to slow anybody down.
Yep.
We're very
Oh
courteous.
God, I'm the
Most
same
women are
way.
very,
It's not
and
just
we
you
always
women.
look at
It's this guy
and,
too.
and I tell people, I'm like, if you are in position, which in position means that you can see the group in front of you, either you are one shot or two shots behind the group in front of you. That means you're in position, not that you're ahead of the group in front of you. It's that you're keeping up with the group in front of you, not the group behind you. I'm sorry. You're not just ahead of the group behind you. You're keeping up with the group in front of you. That's being in position. So when they do you look back and they've got their hand on their golf club and their other hand on their hip and the hurry up pose that we see from 200 yards
That's
out.
right.
If you're in position, then forget it. They're not, who cares? It's not your problem for them that they're impatient. Now, if you're really struggling and there's a gap in front of you, let them play through. I mean, I've done that where I took somebody out. I think we let six groups go. They were very slow. We let six groups play through, and we're never gonna. I mean, I'm like, this is gonna take us 3.5 hours to play, so we're just gonna. But I mean, if you're just learning, I tell people, if you're just learning, tee up the ball, tee it up everywhere, because you're gonna get the ball up in the air, you're gonna hit it farther, you're gonna have fewer shots, and you're gonna have more fun, and you're gonna come back.
Lisa
And then just make
Felvers, Lisa Felvers listening right now, and she is so glad you just said that. You gave her permission to tee it up from anywhere.
tee it up everywhere. Tee it up not high, just like when you're using your irons, just tee it up just a little bit, but tee it up everywhere because you're going to have more
That's
fun
right.
and you're going to hit fewer shots and you'll want to come back. And I'd rather that you are cheating by using a tee, the whole, quote unquote cheating all the way around, if you come back, because it's such a fun
That's
sport. And
right.
I have been so blessed to play so many wonderful courses. I got to play Cypress Point twice.
Wow.
Look it
Nice.
up.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you, it's right
I
there.
have no clue,
It is,
but it
it
sounds
is,
like wow.
it's in Monterey. It's in Monterey. It's just down the road from Pebble. And this is 30 some years ago. I heard they had 100 members it's on the Pacific Ocean. They had 100 members at the end of the year.
Wow.
They say this is how much it costs to run the golf course, and they just all split it 100 ways. So if you have to ask, you can't afford it. That's the kind of place. But if you look it up, it is there's the par three is one of the most photographed golf holes in the world. And I got to play it twice. I got to play the country club in Brookline, Massachusetts, where the men played the Ryder Cup and where the greatest game ever played. That movie, they did
Yep.
Disney movie. It's based on that book of Harry We Met. And I got to play that golf course. I got to play in the U.S. Amateur there. I got to, there's so many wonderful golf courses all over the world and all over especially, and Indiana is excellent for golf
Man,
courses.
really?
So many golf courses, and you can make them as tough or as easy as you want and just get out and play.
The most beautiful place I played was down in Vivi at the casino. It's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely gorgeous. Like
We're playing that in 2 weeks.
oh, it's so beautiful. It's so
Mm-hmm.
cool. And then like I'm nerding out a little bit because I don't have the experience you have, but when your golf cart won't go anymore because you're getting too close to the green,
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah, it
spent
has
some
like
money on their GPS.
Yeah, it's
And you're the
there are
idiot
so
that's
many.
drinking too much beer. Get off the
Oh,
course.
you see that a lot. No, but it's we'll go play that. Joe and I will go. We're gonna go play too. And actually, I played that. I played there the day before I fell.
Oh
So this will
man,
be
it's
So it'll be
beautiful.
great.
It's like one of the
It's a
prettiest
beautiful
places
golf.
in Indiana. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
it's naturally hilly, and then just the landscaping. Holy
Mm-hmm.
crap,
Yeah.
and you see that all over the place, I'm sure. But for me, I live here at Blackford Golf Course, which Troy's done a wonderful job of
Mm-hmm.
putting the course back together and getting it going and getting membership up. He's done a wonderful job, but it's no it's not that. You know what I mean?
No.
Eh,
But, and I appreciate the beauty at
oh
I
yeah,
try to find the beauty at every golf course. I mean, you're looking at, sometimes you're just looking at the backs of houses and I'm like, oh, look at that backyard. I like that patio. Or
right.
I am an advocate for not focusing the whole 18 holes. I have had some players that their parents told them they had to focus the whole time. And I'm like, look at that, look at over there, look at over there.
Yeah.
And, I used to teach at Prairie View and we had eagles.
Oh
I'd
man.
be on the driving range and there'd be eagles and I would just stop. Because when we were in school, eagles were almost extinct.
Right.
Now I see them like, look at, I will stop a lesson. I'm like, look at that eagle. Right. And I'm just looking around but you can find beautiful golf courses and you just have fun. I played with, Richard Witt, and Desra Nybarger and uh, and Tracy was there. Desra and Tracy were in the carts, and I went and played barefoot at Blue Water.
Oh,
I had
that's
so
awesome.
much fun. My feet can glow in the dark by the end of the season. We're playing barefoot, and I'm wearing a long tee. I'm just wearing, like very casual attire, and I'm barefoot. I'm like, this is so much fun. Not going, I just try to find fun everywhere because
Yeah.
you're just looking at golf courses, and it's just there's so many wonderful courses, and I just wish more women would get out and play and not be intimidated. But I was on tour and I was living out in California and I went with a buddy. They had a senior event at this golf course and he goes, do you want to go in to the pro shop and see and I'm like, no way, man. I did not feel like I was even worthy. And I had played on tour. And then I ended up getting a job there. Like I didn't, like 4 or 5 years later, I'm working at that golf course. So I'm going into the pro shop and I'm like, why was I and
Right.
that's where I started the whining with. And there were women, we started at the bar, we'd go downstairs. I'd have to teach them how to drive a golf cart down to the driving range.
Oh wow.
And and like, it's just like driving a car, gals. And like, they're like, they're nervous driving the golf carts and we get down there and they're having their wine or their cocktails. And I gave a lesson to a gal out there. She'd been a member for 9 years, had never gotten a lesson, had never played. She went to the 19th hole and had a beer before she came and got her lesson because she was so nervous. And I think that kind of gave me the idea for the wine and with.
Yeah.
I want to get more women playing. And there's so many advantages to playing as a woman. You get asked to play on pro-am teams, scramble teams. And even Angie, she was a teacher down in New Albany in Floyd
Mm-hmm.
County. And she ended up, I think she was playing with like the superintendent
Yeah.
or he was there or something. And she's like, I was so nervous. And she crushes her drive, right? She focuses really hard and she crushes it. And I'm like, now he'll remember you, right? It's like, it's not that anything ever came of it, but at least like you're
Right.
getting your name out there and you're getting to be known and, you just have fun.
Is she still
And,
teaching?
and
Is she?
she just retired.
She
She
did?
got out.
Okay.
She's now working at an engineering firm, like an office manager.
We're losing the good ones. We're losing all the good ones.
And she gets every other Friday off. So it's and she's loving it. And talking about teaching, she was talking like they were having like appreciation for this big engineering firm or whatever, and they're doing like a big, they're spending $12,000 on lunch or some big thing. And she's like, we got Sharpies. And they're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
And then one of her teacher friends, it was like teacher appreciation week, and they got not even a full Sharpie, it was a small Sharpie. We think you're sharp or something like that, and we thank you. And so she showed them that picture, and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought you were kidding. And so she's out, and so I have high schoolers. I'll tell them to move their right hand, and they have to do this. They don't even know their right or left. High schoolers. And I'm like, did I just see? I'm like, what do you do when the GPS tells you to turn left? Are you doing this on the steering wheel?
Oh my
gosh. And they do. And so so I'm trying to teach them right and left too some days, but it's just,
God bless you.
I can't, I wouldn't want to be in the classroom. I'll take the driving range.
It was
inside
tough.
the simulator every day. I will do it. Well, Joe's a teacher. My boyfriend's a teacher.
Where's he teach at?
He teaches at Harris Academy
Harris
over in
Academy.
Brownsburg.
Okay. Gotcha.
In Brownsburg.
Nice.
It's a alternative school, I
Yeah.
guess.
Good for him, man.
So
Good.
yeah, he's got the patience of Job. I mean,
You have to.
to date me, you have to have the
Well,
patience of
yeah.
Job. But to teach high schoolers at an alternative school, you definitely.
God bless him.
Yeah.
Those were my people, though. I love those kids, and
oh, I mean, he has fun with them, and he says
yeah.
things, and he'll tell me what I'm like, you're saying that to those kids, and he's like, oh yeah, they're laughing, they love it, they think it's hilarious, and. But
oh man, I'm so glad we had this.
yeah.
I can't wait to see you again in person, not just on a screen.
Yeah, we'll go play Blue Water.
Oh,
We'll play Blackford. I'll give you a lesson.
I could certainly use it.
You cannot swing right enough, and you can't turn your hands left enough. That's what I usually tell people.
I promise I'll bring Jennifer. I'll make her go. I wouldn't have to make her go.
She's going to listen to this, and she's going to be like, I'll be like, yeah, it'll be fun.
Erika, she listens to all my podcasts. And what's weird is when we're in the car and she'll turn it on when I'm right there next to her. And so I'm listening to my own conversation, and I listen to all my podcasts. I listen to them over again just to kind of evaluate what I'm doing, trying to get rid of the mans, because I say man a lot. I used to say I'm so excited, but I listen to them, and like you, I'm critiquing. I'm my best, biggest critic. I critique everything I do and how I do it, and but then listening to it in the car with her sitting next to me while she's listening to it, and there's like things that come out in conversation. I'm like, I look at her like, okay, she didn't even react, and I know internally she's reacting to something.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that? I liked it. That was good. She enjoyed it, and I'm having fun with it. And
well, that's good, but don't. I tell my students I can tell when they're ripping on themselves. Like you can just see it, the body language, and they're getting so. And golf is such a frustrating game.
It is.
And I will tell them, you tell that dark voice to shut the Frank up.
Well, I'm gonna start calling it. I'm gonna start calling it the Randy Seahigh. So Jason Jones put Randy Seahigh's voice inside of me, and Randy Seahigh is our current football coach at the high school.
Okay.
And I got to teach with him for a couple years and become friends with him. And I love Randy, so much respect for him. But he was out golfing with Jason was out golfing with Randy and Jason's dad, Mike, and I think maybe his brothers. And he said that Randy will make a shot, and it's a terrible shot, and he'll go, "It's a fun game. It's a fun game." So now that's what I say. That's
yeah,
it's a fun game.
Say it's fun. Well, I'll tell my kids, I'll go like, or they're getting all frustrated and mad, and I'll go, "We're here for fun, damn it!" And they start laughing, and I'm like, I mean, come on. It's like, and because I'm the biggest supporter. I'm like, I'm just short of having the pom poms, but I've had only one person go, "What dark voice?"
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like,
Man.
I'm like, did your father love you or something? Like, what was your childhood like? How did that happen? Like, how do you not have that dark voice? Because everybody else seems to have one. Like, what's going on? But
they weren't a Gen Xer.
No.
They definitely didn't grow up when we did. That's for sure.
No.
There's like six of them standing around me. One's got a cigar, another one's got a beer, one's wearing a pair of bibs.
Oh yeah.
One's my brother.
I was telling some of the cart kids some of the stories. And Coach was standing right there. Coach is 84 now.
Oh, good grief.
And he's standing there, and I'm telling these stories. And he's still good friends with Bobby Knight.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I had basically Bobby Knight light as my golf coach.
Bobby Knight light.
He's hard on you, but you like when you were being a jerk, he'd tell you, right? I mean, and I deserved it. I mean, he helped me. Like my one friend, she was a coach, and she said, we're getting 18-year-old girls, and they're leaving young women, and so we're a very integral part in helping them develop their adulthood. And I was like, wow, that's true. And Coach, we had to be on time, and if we weren't, but I'm telling some of these stories, and they are hilarious now, and just funny. But
were they funny then?
Sometimes, a little bit. Like in 2007, I told Coach one of the stories because it was interesting. He caddied for me. He was 68, and he caddied for me in the 2007 Open, and now I'm just teaching. I'm not playing, so it was like a totally different. Like he wasn't as hard on me and be like, "Come on, we got to go practice for 6 hours." Yeah. It was more like, Have you had enough? Like, you've
Yeah,
practiced some. We were just there for fun, right? And I told him this one story, and he goes, "I said that," and I go, "Yeah, yeah, you did." And he goes, "Huh, that's pretty funny."
that's pretty good.
And I go, "It's funny now, but not when it happened, Coach. I was crying, like, but it was just like." But I needed it. When I was being a jerk, I needed somebody to tell me I was being a jerk. And
Yeah.
he had no problem, but he made me a better person, and he made me realize that I needed to be on time and I needed to set a schedule. And I can't say enough. I mean, but the stories are hilarious. Like, it's fun, right? Because now you see the frustration as an adult. Like, you see the frustration that they know you can do this and you're
Yeah.
not doing it, and you get angry. But it's fun. It was all fun. I love that man. So I'm glad he's still here. I'm
I've
glad.
heard you mention Coach numerous times. You got to tell us who he is. We don't know
Oh, it's Sam
Coach.
Carmichael. Sam
Sam
Carmichael.
Carmichael.
He's taught me since I was 14. He
That's
owns
awesome.
Martinsville Golf Club,
Okay.
and Martinsville Golf Club it's right there off of 69 now.
Yep.
It is a great golf course. It's one of my favorites, and it's got some hills, and the course isn't super long, but it'll eat your lunch if you're not paying attention or if you're not doing well. And it's so much fun. And one of my teammates from college, Courtney Cox Cole, like the Sisters of Savings. I don't know if you remember those annoying commercials that they used to do. She passed away, and they did a charity event for her there. And I told her brother-in-law, I go, "Man, have you been there?" He'd never been there, and I go, it has an aura.
Hmm.
And he came up to me while he's playing the course, and he goes, "This place is special." He goes, "This place is great." So it's one of my favorites. One of my top, and I've played Cypress Point, and I played the
Right.
country club, and I've got to play, tons of courses, but it's one of my favorites because it's just it's a good track, and it just feels comforting there.
Is this the one
Yeah.
that's been owned by the same family for like 100 years? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, the Carmichaels have either
All
owned
right.
it or run it for 100 years, so
I'm gonna
it's
put it on my
awesome.
list of places I want to go
He's
play
he's
and
he's
that list is
84. He still works. He still mows the greens and cuts
oh,
the
that's
cups, so
awesome.
you'll see him out there every day. Yeah, I
Just so you
think he
know
works
that
like 5 days a week.
that list is very short. On that list of places I want to go play are Martinsville.
Mhm.
Oh, and Blue Water.
Oh. Oh, and Blue Water, yes.
I've never played
Yes.
Blue Water.
There
I played
there is
Cayenne. I
some.
played Blackford. Cayenne
Mhm,
was like one of the very first places I ever played, and that was where
mhm,
on one of the holes on the back there were some houses or apartments like along the fence line. When you tee off, they're
mhm,
like way up. And I was playing with Troy Batten and another guy. It was in a scramble or whatever.
mhm.
And he said, "Hey Scott, uh, why don't you aim at the houses?" So I aimed at the houses and I put it in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah. I drove out to Cayenne because it was like I've always known it was Laurel Lakes. I mean,
Oh yeah,
Megan, my
yeah.
baby sister, she took her first steps out there on that
Oh
golf
man.
on the patio there. So I drive up, and I walk up on the first tee box. I'm wearing like yoga pants and a t-shirt. I'm trespassing because it's owned by that gentleman that owns the property now, and half of the trees on the holes were torn down because he made it a pasture, right? It's a field now, I think.
Yep.
And I'm out there, and I'm like in tears, and this all of a sudden I hear this voice like, "Can I help you?" I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm
Oh
trespassing."
wow.
But my name's Erika Wicoff. My sister took her for, and I'm like rambling on, and he at least had heard of my name, I guess, and he didn't shoot me,
Yeah.
which he had all right to. But he did. He gave me a couple of benches from there.
Oh,
My
that's
sister and I used to
cool.
sit on and wait, and my mom even had in her front yard one of the ball washers. It's still in that. It's
Oh,
like
that's
now it's in her.
awesome.
So just like a little reminder of Laurel Lakes and Dad, and because we spent
Yeah.
so much time out there. But there are so many great golf courses that you should get out and play. You really need to venture. I mean, just play the Players Club. Go to
Oh yeah.
Muncie.
Yeah.
Players Club. Crestview's good. There's tons of courses.
I know.
Walnut Creek. That's
I
where when we
know.
first moved to New York City, that's where we would go to Randy. Randy's
They
great.
told me all about
They,
it. My brother and
mhm.
I and my nephews played over there a while back, and your name was on the wall a couple times for different things for some sort of
Hmm,
course
hmm.
championships or something. And I said, went to school with Erica. So she's one of my friends, and they're like, "Oh boy, she spent a lot of time out here, you know." And I'm like, "Really?"
Mhm.
And that's what I mean.
Yep.
It was like we had. I don't think most of us that went to school with you realized the commitment you had put into becoming a professional, well, just
No,
to becoming a great golfer, and
I think yeah, I mean, I was just a golf nerd, right? I mean, I was
right,
just nerdy and a golfer, but I think when it hit some people when we had senior night, and
yeah,
I didn't know, I had no idea, but mom and Mr. Landis had worked together to discuss what my full ride was, and he was like, books paid in full, tuition, pay, this and this, and they're like all, and I could hear everybody talking. I'm like, oh man, that's me. And so he calls my name and I walk up and I could hear like our classmates kind of going, what?
what?
She's got a, like, I don't even think people understood
We didn't get it.
like I was that I was good enough to get a full scholarship. I don't think they just thought I was a golfer and it's,
Part of
but
that was for someone like me, I didn't understand any of it. I
mhm.
played football up
We were
until I
just
was a freshman. And, nobody was giving out mascot scholarships, so it wasn't like I had a clue. I just think that now it's a lot more in front of us. Social media is a
mhm,
huge part of that, and
huge.
yeah, I mean, so I boy, to go back and truly appreciate everything you did would be a
Thanks.
totally different program. And the amount of pride I have of being able to say, I went to school with Erika Wicoff. And
Oh yeah.
so, and I know I'm not the only one. There's a lot of us that have that. And I know you're laughing, but it's true.
Well, it's
And
just
it's
I
hard
just
to
tell
hear
people,
accolades like that. I get it. But
yeah.
we loved you and we appreciated you. And I think we appreciate you now more than what we did then. And boy, what a shame that is. And I hope
Yeah.
through this, other people will go, dang, that kid that is riding a motorcycle every weekend, going somewhere, traveling around, or that travel softball or baseball player, or that kid that's dribbling a basketball all over the
Mhm.
place, getting an appreciation for the time and effort and energy they're putting in. Boy, go watch them play. Go
It's the
watch them.
whole, yeah, it's the whole family that
Oh,
sacrifices, right?
so
I mean, my
much.
siblings, they our big trip was going to the state tournament. It was either at Purdue or Indiana, and we would stay in a hotel for a week, and we just want to make sure I had a pool. So my siblings kind of like, they kind of got the short end of the stick, I think, a lot of the times. And then when I turned 16, mom and dad were like, "All right, you're driving,"
Yeah.
and so that kind of took it off a little bit. But I think that we were just young and we had no idea, but I had that desire, and then because I had worked with coach, because he was the IU coach. So I started getting lessons with him when I was 14 back in 88. And so I knew where I wanted for me to go to college, I needed that full scholarship.
Yeah.
And so, and he helped make a better player out of me. And then he offered me a ride and offered me the full ride. And I didn't want to go anywhere else. I basically that night I signed a letter and mailed it off to him to Assembly Hall. And it was like a week later. And I mean, I'd already been working with him for like 3 years. I think
Yeah.
I was a junior when he offered it to me. I still have the letter. I still have the letter saying he has a full scholarship for me. And he called me up and he's like, "You made my year." So he didn't, because he wasn't sure. He was just trying to teach me to make me a better player,
Yeah.
and hoping I would go there, but he wasn't sure. But I could have gone. I found out years later that he'd kind of put the word out like, "Hey,
She's
I
mine.
like," and because I could have gone to Auburn, Wake Forest was looking at me. Laura and I both got letters from South Carolina. So but it was totally different back then, because then the coaches recruited. Now the kids have to kind of, like, for less of a better term, they have to kind of pimp themselves out,
Yeah.
right? They're the ones sending out the letters, sending out, you have to do all your due diligence, because everybody's kind of trying to put themselves in front of the coaches. So it's a totally different atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think now it's bigger. And because it's bigger, people understand. But back then, nobody really knew. And I was just a nerdy golfer with big eyebrows and high hair just, and my pleated Dockers, right? My pleated khaki shorts. So I mean, I didn't, you know, I held no grudges against anybody that just kind of that never came out to watch. But it would have, it's
And we never
and
felt that. Never. I'm telling you, like if you didn't know Erica was a golfer in high school, it's because you just didn't know. It wasn't because you put it out there in front of us like, I'm a golfer. It was
Mhm.
never
Oh, I was
that.
yeah,
Like
I wasn't gonna
you
I
were
wasn't
never
gonna brag.
that. No,
No.
God, no. I can't
No,
imagine that.
I was
I mean, you were the most humble person about it, and you were just having fun. You were being a kid, and how special is
I
that?
just loved I love trophies. That's what it
Right? You
was.
were chasing.
I was materialistic, man. I wanted every trophy. We'd get to the tournament and they'd have all the trophies laid out. I'm like, where's mine? Where's mine?
Uh,
Let me get that one. There's the first place trophy. I'm taking that one home. And now, like when my mom moved back from Southern Indiana back up north, um, like I threw away. I took pictures of some of
sure.
I had all the stuff in the basement. I took
Oh,
pictures of
wow.
stuff and then I just I'm like, I don't need this, I won a flight at the state junior when I was 12. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't, or I was 11 and I had this from when I was 11 and I got rid of it like 7 years ago. Like, what am I going to do with that? Right. So I just threw away a bunch of trophies, took pictures of it. I'm like, all right, I got it. It's, but it was fun. I still love winning, but I just
Man.
don't.
Now you got me wondering where all my girls' trophies are. I don't know if we still have them. When we moved a couple times in
Mhm,
2019, and there was a lot of movement going on there. I don't know if they're still around from all their stuff they did. I know
mhm.
their Letterman
Oh, yeah.
jackets are here at the house and like in a closet
Mhm.
somewhere, but I don't, they moved on,
Yeah.
bigger things.
Yeah. Yeah, you move on and you're like, it was important at the time, but I kept it all because I had sentimental value.
Oh,
And then I was
sure.
like, here, I don't need like, and one, my place isn't big enough for all of that stuff now. I mean, you come to my house and you really wouldn't know I'm a golfer. I have
Yeah,
one wall that's kind of like my, all my stuff.
golf
And
wall.
my golf wall
Yeah,
where you would be like, oh, this gal plays golf. But other than that, like you wouldn't really know. I have a shadow box I want Joe to make me, but it has my important things in
yeah.
there, but he hasn't made it yet.
A
He's on
few
it.
a
He's
few
gonna get
years ago, I'd taken all my certificates of like completion, all my
on it.
my different academic stuff, and uh, I put it all in plaques, and I made this wall,
Mhm,
and it was it was kind of a passive aggressive thing. There was another person in the building that had all their stuff on
mhm.
a wall, and I
Oh,
thought I can do that too. So I made this
mhm,
huge wall of all this stuff. I mean, every certificate. If I passed a 1 hour, bloodborne pathogens awareness, I put
mhm,
it in a
yeah,
plaque and put it on the wall. So, and I put it on a wall so when you walked into my office, it was direct line of sight,
mhm.
right?
Oh, perfect.
So I'm off one day, and it was all a joke, and everybody around me knew it was a joke, right? It was
Mhm,
an inside joke type thing. Well, I was out one day, and they had when the administrators would go to like conferences and stuff, we would get subs, and they would be like
mhm,
aspiring administrators. And one of them came in, and there were like two of us gone that day, so two of those subs were in, and
mhm.
Abby looks at the wall, and she looks at it, and I think it was with Adam, I'm not for sure, and she said, Schick's really into himself, isn't he? And Adam was aware of what was going on. And he's like, oh God, yeah. Well, there's a story behind it. It's kind of a joke.
Mhm.
And but I thought, oh, that is exactly what I was looking for. I wanted someone to respond in a way where they
Yeah.
went, he's really into himself, isn't he? That's
Uh-huh.
exactly the response I got. And it
Mhm.
was, it was almost like it was worth the hours. And I put hours into building
Oh,
that thing
yeah.
out. Like they had to be perfectly aligned and
Oh,
matching.
geez.
You know what I mean? I mean, I put
Uh-huh.
effort into this wall, and then for somebody to come in and go, "He's really into himself, isn't he?" That made it all worth it. And as soon as that happened, I took them all down. I was like, "Yes, I win."
That's
'Cause
awesome.
I could care
That's
less. You
awesome.
know what I mean? Like my trophies are my kids, and you can't see them where you're at, but
Mhm,
they're my kids and my family, and those are my trophies, man. Those are the things,
mhm.
just accomplishments in life, the things that make us happy. Those are the ones, those relationships we build with other people. Your relationship with your coach, with Joe, your sisters and your brother, and your mom and your dad. Those are the trophies, and boy, you get to
Oh, yeah.
cherish those. You don't need a wall to remind you of them. They're there with
Yeah.
us all the time,
I
and
I got
your
invited.
dad's with you every day.
Oh, I know, and he's
Yeah,
cursing at me
that's right.
sometimes when I do something. He's like, there's F-bombs
Yeah.
everywhere. But I just went 2 weekends ago. I went to I met her freshman year at Daleville. She had her first par. I met her right after sectional, and then I taught her for 4 years. She ended up playing at Anderson University.
Awesome.
She just graduated, got married. I got invited to go, and those are the relationships. That's more important
Yeah.
than what I've done. And and I remember I moved out to California. I was living with this guy, and this guy had a Pumpkin Ridge t-shirt on. I'm working at a racket club, right? Just in the off season, I'm just working there. And I go, "Oh, I played there in the Open." And he goes, "You played in the US Open and you're checking me in?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, it's just like I'm very unassuming. I don't like tell everybody what I do. But yeah, it's the relationships that you build through the years. And I've
Yeah.
had so many good kids and good, some people it's I've had adults where it's kind of like I'm a bartender, right? They're telling me their woes, or they're telling me what's going on with their kids. And it's you kind of build a really good rapport with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And you kind of become a sounding board to some of them. And you kind of help them. They're struggling. And one time this guy was struggling, and I started asking about his grandkids, and then he hit a good shot, and he's like, "Thank you." Like,
Yeah.
he was too uptight. I'm like, "You need to relax." But I think the golf end, the teaching end, is way more rewarding than the playing.
Yeah.
And because I have no kids, so no, what are they going to do with these plaques?
That's
Nothing.
right. Well, these are your kids. Your
Hmm?
students are now your kids.
Yeah, I'll be like, "Hey, do you want this?" They'll be
Yeah.
like, "Why do I want that?" But I'll
Hey,
be
hit
like,
the
"You want
shot.
this?
I'll give you
You want this Hall of Fame plaque?" They'll be like, "No." It's like, "Okay, all right, well, all right, I'll just give it to Goodwill. Maybe somebody."
Oh my God. Speaking of that, I don't know if you saw this, but like last year, Trista Kuykendall posted something where her daughter was at a Goodwill and found her
Mhm.
softball sweatshirt from high school.
I saw that.
How
That was
crazy is
crazy.
that?
That is so crazy.
One of my favorite stories ever. Like that's exactly where they'll find all my, my accolades is in a Goodwill one of these days.
Oh, or the
In
dumpster.
fact, I say that, but just not too long ago, I don't know if you're aware, I was in a band in the 20 years ago called Cuffed, and we'd put out like a 6-song EP. Somebody
Mhm.
found one of my CDs in a Goodwill
Oh,
not too long ago, and I'm like, I made it. I made it. It was mixed in with Ozzy and some other,
you're like,
big
"I'm right there."
some other artists, that you may have heard of, may have not, but
Mhm. Now, was part of you upset that they gave it away?
no, I was
Like,
actually like,
isn't
okay.
this a treasure in your house?
It was,
Like, you're listening to this all the time?
man, no. Yeah, I was like, it's time. It's time.
You have taken it to a new level.
The
You just
fact
took
that
it.
they kept it for that long and then thought, that's not garbage. It belongs in a
No,
Goodwill. I
they
mean,
probably had to move, and they could only take 4 things with them, and
come on. Give me this one. Give me this one.
they couldn't move with it. They had to.
So they had to
It
get
was
rid of it.
either your CD or like their underwear,
That's
and
right.
they chose, had to make a decision.
That's how
And so
important
they
it was
could
to
only
them.
take 4 things with them. They could
Oh
only take
God.
4 things with them, and they just were like, I gotta let this go.
I gotta
I gotta let
let
this.
I gotta let Cuffed
I got
go.
I gotta take my egg pan with me.
I gotta
Instead,
take.
I don't know.
We're gonna have do I want, hey, do you want a dozen eggs? No, but give me 24 deviled eggs. I'm in. You know?
Oh,
Right? I
hmm,
mean, nothing about
hmm,
eating 12 hard-boiled eggs gets me excited. But you give me
hmm,
24 deviled eggs, I'm all in.
hmm.
I will
And
stink it up for a week.
I count the calories that I'm gonna expend just going to the counter to go pick it up and then go sit down.
That's right.
So,
It's worth it.
because I just keep making that trip.
Lady, we've been on here like almost 2.5 hours.
I know,
Isn't
I
that
know,
nuts?
I know. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's great stuff. And in fact, you win the award for the longest Schick Show episode on record. So
Oh,
yeah.
yay!
So put
Can I get
that.
a CD?
If you go to
Can I
Goodwill,
get that?
you got to go to
Okay.
Goodwill to get it.
I'm on my way right now.
I'll come get that Hall of Fame plaque, and
We'll do swaps.
there it is. It's perfect, man. It's great to hear from you, and I look forward to seeing you sometime. Stay in touch. All right.
Yes, I will.
So
I will. All right.
those random texts, I'll send you one out, and you'll be like, "What the heck is this guy doing? It's 2 a.m. Go to bed, dude."
No. I'll probably be awake. All right. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This
See
is
ya.
fun.
All right.
All
See
right.
ya. Bye.